All right. I'm Rick Mullinax. This is Burn After Reading Live. And Mel Cold Truth is also in the house and she's muted. Cold Truth, can you hear me? Where's she at? First. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So it's possible that Cold Truth might be away. She might be doing something, but we're going to be doing a live stream here. Let me also message her just to make sure. Dead silence. Dead silence. Are you able to unmute? See if she responds. Oh, you know what? She's in the private chat. She sent something. Okay, so there we go. I should have looked at that first. You see that? You see why I'm not good at lives? This is because of this stuff. She is taking a break for a moment. She's going to be here momentarily. So, are you coming in from Cold Truth's live stream? I know that she was doing something on hers. What's up, everyone? Hello, Regal Eagle. Hi, Rick. I hope your pets are safe. Yeah, I hope so too. Of course, Springfield is more south of me. I haven't heard of anyone taking any of our animals lately. The coyotes have, though. We have coyotes here in Parma. Hey, welcome. Thank you for coming. Fire and Ice, like your name. Hi, how are you? All right, so Mel's not able to see a simulcast. Let me see if there's anything I can do to change that. I don't know. Stand by. Anyone know how to simulcast? Oh, fun bootleg. And now I completely, oh, here we go. Chat. Sorry, everyone. We're having some difficult. We were supposed to simulcast this, and apparently it's not allowing it on mail side. I don't know why.
I made it.
Hey, Mel, I'm sorry. I know we're supposed to simulcast. How did we do that last time?
I don't know. Do you have StreamYard?
Yeah, that's what I'm using. I thought, like last time, if you came on, I thought there was an option for you to do it. Unless has StreamYard been changing everything? Because that's what I thought last time. Last time I thought that if you were because our good friend Greeno, that's what he was doing when he would go on someone else's live stream.
Yeah.
He would simulcast it, and so there was an option on his side to do that. So I don't know like where the icon is, where by edit next to it. I don't know if you do something like that, it'll give you the option, but
that handles that department. We share a StreamYard, which we're gonna have to talk about because I don't know if you saw just the automatic bump from $17 to $45 a month.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not gonna do. I'm gonna have to cancel mine. I can't do that. I don't make enough money on this channel to even sustain that. Like most of the time, because I'm, like, no, I can't. I'm
hey,
not paying.
Yeah, I'm leaving the live stream business anyways. Going back to the
Yeah.
pre-recorded stuff, just because a little more comfortable doing it, and
Yeah.
it just works out better. I mean, I thought things were really well with Fig last week, but
Yeah.
overall, it's just I'm just more. I think I get more eyes on the product of information if I just pre-record, put the information out there. And there's still ways if I want to do interviews and things like that, I could do it. That's pre-recorded. That's doesn't have to require a live. Live seems to work really well for people. I don't think it necessarily works well for me. So it's just kind of how it is.
I do it because I don't have any storage on my computer. It's super old. It's actually my daughter's that we got her in like her sophomore, junior year of high school. So,
people donate to Mel to get a new computer so she can have these things that she can back up on her computer and she can continue to do this thing, even if it's just doing pre-recordings. You should do it.
I got a whole closet full of flannels. Maybe all the lives that I do next, being I'll just like wear all of my flannels, all the different ones each live. I have one from Tough Hedeman, and it's signed by Tough Hedeman and Cody Lambert and Lane Frost, and it was worn by Tough. Now that's a cowboy right there. Love me some Cadillac. Love me some rodeo. Oh.
Where's this conversation going?
I don't know. He brought up flannel and I just like, rabbit.
All of a sudden, we're talking about how cowboys make us feel and, and I don't.
8 Seconds is up there with one of my favorite movies. Yeah, Bootleg just said it. 8 Seconds. That's right.
Are the dogs safe in Indiana where you're at?
Are the what?
Are the dogs and cats safe in Indiana?
Not from my dog, personally. No one's safe from I literally live in a home with a psychopath. Like, he would be on death row if he was a real person.
Apparently, in Springfield, cats and dogs are being eaten. So I just want to make sure that everyone's here in Parma, where I live. We have coyotes. That's the only thing we have to worry about. So other than that,
my backyard has to worry about my murderous dog who I don't know. I feel like this is not common, but he eats them whole. He eats wild animals whole.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, and no wonder he's got diabetes, so that's a pain in the ass. The guy can't with him. But
well, actually, to everyone, I want to make sure that what we're talking about, Cold Truth has been talking about earlier on her channel. She did a live stream talking about these pretrial hearings and the testimonies, and you should definitely check out the channel, especially people on my end. I know there are people on her end who are here too, but if you haven't been to her channel, go check it out. It's fantastic. Has a lot of great knowledge. I just wanted to get that out there just in case.
Yeah, I basically went through the timeline of the safekeeping, the July 30th, and we ended at Galipo. How do you say it?
Galipo. No, you're right. Galipo is.
I got it right.
And I only knew that because as I was looking at the 83 pages, I wanted to make sure, like, I want to say this guy's name right. So I went on Google and I'm like, how do you pronounce this? And there's, tools to how to pronounce a name. And Galipo seems to be what it is.
Yeah. We'll just call him Johnny Boy.
So yeah, and so also to be clear to you and to everyone, I've only have been able to summarize and take notes on only a few of these testimonies, and then I didn't even have the complete list of testimonies.
Yeah, we don't have them. They
Yeah,
haven't been transcribed yet. So
yeah. Did you talk about Dr. Walla? I assume you did.
no, she's later on in the timeline of like
Okay.
the
All right.
hearing. So we are at Galipo, who testified on July 31st for the suppression hearing.
Mhm. And from the little bit that I did hear on your live stream as I was preparing and getting ready,
Mm-hmm.
you seem like you took some really good notes, and you have a lot of maybe even outside information of also what was discussed in the testimony. So, do you want me to kind of give you my summary of the Galipo thing, and you can elaborate or go more into it, see what you agree with, what you disagree with?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, yeah, the testimony of Warden John Galipo given at hearing on motion to suppress that was held on July 31st, 2024. And he was the warden at Westville when Allen was there, and testified that he heard Allen make a verbal confession through his cell, and he allegedly heard Allen name the girls in that statement. In a separate instance, the warden said Allen gave him a letter stating that he wanted to confess, and Galipo turned that letter over to internal affairs at the facility.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense argued the conditions in which Allen was being housed at Westville. They claimed that it was wrongful, considering that he hasn't been convicted of a crime. And Galipo testified that Allen's environment at Westville wasn't worse than other inmates in the maximum security unit, and where Allen was being held for safekeeping to protect him as a defendant. In fact, the warden said Allen was actually given accommodations others in his restricted housing area of the prison would not have. And he was allowed family visits, and he broke a tablet, and that was replaced for him without having to pay for it. There was a scratch window in his cell that was replaced, which workers wouldn't typically be obligated to do. The warden also claimed Allen was offered a TV, which is standard at the facility, if I'm not mistaken, but he declined.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense claimed Allen didn't ever have privacy because there was no audio camera on him. Or, sorry, let me say that again. The defense claimed Allen didn't ever have privacy because there was a no audio camera on him in his cell, and that was on him around the clock. And he was recorded on a handheld camera while being transported within the prison.
Yeah.
And other than when you're speaking to your lawyers, I just want to make it clear, for the most part, you have no privacy at a prison, whether you're the accused or whether you're convicted. You're being watched.
Mm-hmm.
Your rights are, the only rights really regarding that is with your attorneys. But Allen, he was also on and off suicide watch. As part of that, he was given suicide companions, who are inmates who are in a special program and will sit outside the cell of an inmate on suicide watch, so they can document their behavior. And when Allen was taking off suicide watch, the inmate companions continued until Allen started with what Galipo described as odd and bizarre behavior. He testified in April 2023 that Richard Allen started covering himself in fecal matter, and he was washing his face in the toilet. He was then placed again on suicide watch. And it was then that the inmate companions, they were removed, and the guards, they took over outside of Allen's cell so that they could document his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the lawyers, they argued back and forth over constitutional law, with the state saying that the motion to suppress wasn't based in law because the surrounding environment isn't grounds for suppression, and the case law doesn't support that claim. And that's the summary that I was basically able to get out of that 83-page testimony. Do you have anything to add to that, to talk about some things that you may agree or disagree as far as what Galipo said?
No, I mean, I think that, Galipo, he did a pretty good job. I think that people need to understand, like, There's, what was it, 255 inmates housed in the Westville, this particular unit in solitary for different reasons, and that he was treated. There are some things that are just protocol, and like they mentioned that like his cell dimensions of 8 by 12, with like people have been honing in on the toilet. I know toilet. I can't say that word.
The toilet.
Yeah, the toilet, and the fact that it's like really close to his bed, and that his bed is very close to the ground because it is for suicide watch. So they do that so that inmates can't get underneath and hide under their bed. So just some things about like 8 by 12 is that's bigger than a lot of the other prisons and jails that I've looked into, just as far as size. But that he he had a tablet, and when he was without a tablet, there is a phone in this unit. It's like a mobile, like a telephone.
Good catch, yeah.
Use and to call too. So the tablet gives, and he had like 100 and some hours, like 100, like an average of like 160 hours of like communications between him and whomever that he was talking. So I don't know. I think a lot of people kind of like, oh, he was just in this like black hole of mistreatment, and like these are all kind of standard. And even like True Crime Grit was describing the toilet and that there's actually like a sink on it. Like it's got like a little fountain on it for washing your hands or whatever. And then that like they are given like a cardboard box if they want to use that for eating on or whatever. But if you can't like make them have one if they don't want it or whatever. But I think some of that stuff of just, yes, there is a slit in the door, and like the time where he wouldn't take his hands out of it. So protocol is to tase someone that doesn't do that. So like just some of the things that I found were that they did make exceptions for him being on this unit due to his status as a pretrial detainee, and that is it, that which is that is not protocol, and they don't have to do that. Like they didn't have to do that for them, but they did, and they replaced his tablet. And he even made the point about there's like so many of these tablets, and there's a lot of people that didn't get them, because he got it. So that have been waiting for one, that are in there as well. So that was one thing that I noted. And then the visit, this particular unit, it's not like in Gen Pop where he cannot be in Gen Pop. I don't care what people say, that is not going to happen for a pretrial detainee at his level or another person's detainment at that level. And if I always go back to it, if the defense wants to press the issue of the motion to let bail that they canceled, that they did that, the state would have had to prove their case. Maybe he would not have been given a bail, but maybe he would have been and not had to go through this at all. So that's really like when people like are just mad at the prosecution and law enforcement, I'm like, there's a lot to be kind of upset with his defense too, of like, these are things that they could have done within Indiana law that they asked for the hearings. They were given the hearings. They canceled it. First cancel made perfect sense. The second cancel, it was, they said, we don't want to do the motion to let bail. They immediately went into wanting to suppress the fruits of the search warrant. So that was changed, and they did that. But it is something that they can do, and I have seen it. I have been to a murder trial where the defendant was let out on bail, awaiting her murder trial in Indiana. So
Yeah, and that's crazy.
a lot
And
of the stuff is just standard too, though. You know, this is just standard protocol that they have to file within the IDOC, like rules of like their guidelines, their protocol. Like you can't just like go rogue, and you know, like he's assigned here by someone else, and they're the cameras. That's not a. These things are just not. It's not like they did these things just to Richard Allen, right? Like, if
right.
that makes sense.
Well, look, he's part of a high-profile murder case, and if
Yeah.
anyone remembers, it was during the COVID times too. But like, um, if they remember watching the conviction of Joseph D'Angelo, the Golden State Killer, before that, they monitored him 24/7.
Yeah.
One of the things that they did, for example, he tried to play the old feeble man anytime he made a court appearance, and
Mhm.
even though he went ahead and he pled guilty to the murders, and so they couldn't get him for the rape charges, so he had to basically say, "I admit." So he admitted to the rape, to the rapes as well. And one of the things that the prosecution did, and I thought they didn't have to do this, but it kind of shows you, he was playing everyone, feigning. You know how like there's the claim that Richard Allen is feigning his mental illness. Well, we have Joseph D'Angelo feigning his old feebleness, showing his dexterity in his jail
All
cell,
that.
prison cell. I mean, just doing all
And
these
his
things.
OCD.
Right. Exactly. And so I think it's good to document that. I understand. Oh, well, you can watch him go number one or number two in the bathroom. Okay. But I'm sorry. He's not admitted that privacy. He's not. He is in prison. Now,
Yeah.
if you're found innocent and stuff like that, I mean, that's unnecessarily, and that's going through unnecessarily embarrassing things. I'd be pretty mad about it. But,
Mm.
you know, if you are going to, especially if it's going to lead to a conviction,
Yeah.
it is what it is. They have to, because then it becomes the Jeff Epstein thing of, wow, why did the cameras were off him? Why was there not cameras on them?
Right.
Cameras need to be on a guy who is a part of a high profile murder case.
Well, and that's also like, that was something I had underlined in who did this? Was it Rosie that direct exam on him?
Oh, I don't recall.
I think it was Rosie. Hold on. It'll say. Gotta get to the right page.
And a great point here, similar to Israel Keys, who talked his way out of suicide watch and committed suicide.
Yep.
Great point.
Yeah, and just think what everyone would be saying if they just broke all their protocol. And
Right.
but I did read that you can. This would have to be a hearing, and it would be the judge and a few other people. But you can, a pretrial detainee can ask to be put in Gen Pop. I was like, what?
Yeah, they can ask.
Okay.
I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened with Jeffrey Dahmer, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was in isolation, and I could be wrong on it. I could be misremembering, but I was watching this documentary, and I think one of the things he wanted to go in Gen Pop, and they allowed it. And well, we see what we know what happened.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that, because he probably petitioned for that.
Yeah, well, yeah, he would have to. Yeah,
there was one thing I wanted to so Rosie, this is a quote. What were your intentions in having her preserve all of that video, the video of him in his cell and on the move, with the cameras? And Galipo said, just for proceedings just like this. So that was like, and he said, okay. Rosie said, okay. So just so you could have, knowledge of, be transparent. And he said, for purpose of litigate, and that's what Galipo said. And then Rosie said, for purpose of litigation, right? And he said, or to just be transparent, to capture anything that may have happened. So this wasn't something that they started after the event. This is protocol. This isn't something that they just started to do with just Richard Allen and installed these cameras just for Richard Allen. Like, this is jail. This is prison. This is jail too. Like, and the privacy thing, you're not going to get that in jail either when you have a tablet or make a phone call. It's recorded. They tell you that when you get the call. Like,
I think that was stated in one of Harshman's testimony, if I'm remembering right. Like, they clearly went through, like, beforehand that you're being recorded, so.
Yeah, I mean, I've called, like, I had the whole thing I did with Dabaya, and like it says, like, and it will interrupt you to tell you, so like, super annoying, things like that. So yeah, like, you're fully aware, and the tablets are run the same way. The chirps, even if you send an email, that's all. There's no right to privacy there. Like, then there's no violation of his rights to it, except for lawyers.
Like, exactly.
There's no, and that's never been brought up by the defense either. So, no. Yeah, I think that, and then the light thing, like, come to find out, he has a dimmer, like, so, like, you can't really, that's not, like, they're all the same. It's not like his lights were just left on and like a blowhorn, like, put in his cell to like drive him mad. These are all just things of being on this unit. And, but the length of time, like, some of those, especially because these particular units are to house safekeeping, like, for different things, but some of them are on there for, if not longer than Richard Allen was there. And he wasn't in solitary confinement like that people think of when they hear that word. The word is an emotional trigger for people, and it's just not the case. Like, yeah, like, there's protocols and rules for interactions with, but he could go with the psychology team there. Like, he had many, like, he could go talk to them, and he did quite often. And he would get checked on, which the other inmates don't, of like, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Like, he was given a lot of permissions that they did not have to do according to Indiana law. It's just, but there were times that he would just like refuse. They can't, make him do things if he refuses to do them. But,
yeah, like, I don't see the prisoner of war thing, which was mentioned over a year ago by the defense. If anything, in the scope of a prison, and I need to put it in contextual purposes, as far as prison goes, he was treated rather well and treated with kid gloves, as far as what I'm gathering from the information of the testimonies.
Yeah.
And I failed to see the defense bring anything up that was at least convincing to me that would state otherwise.
Yeah. And they kind of went like really back and forth with like direct and then cross and redirect and then recross and then redirect.
Yeah.
Too.
On top of reading some of the transcripts, I did listen to some people read some of the transcripts, and I couldn't do it anymore because of the back and forth. I'm like, no, I'm just going to read it because I'm going to understand this better. It's like, I can't go back with that stuff.
Yeah. And then like Rosie was really trying to like hit home about the whole being shackled and like things like that are all just protocol, you know, and Galipo made the point that, well, like, yeah, like that's the protocol, but like he can move around with those. He can eat with those. There's a box that they put on, but I guess they take that off. But one of the things that was Galipo stated was that I was like, and you acknowledge that the visitation room was basically empty with the exception of a couple lawyers and some prison guards. And he was like, it was empty because we made accommodations for Mr. Allen. And like for him to have the visit with his wife, like and like he had made a point that because he were kind of complaining about that. But even though he can visit with her on his tablet as long as he would not break it, but there's guards in every visitation room. And his thing was like, well, they're listening in and they couldn't drink water. And yeah. And he gave the protocol is like, no, you can't, like for her to be like, go to the bathroom because I guess like they made that rule because the people visiting were going to the bathroom and leaving things in there. And then the prisoner was going in and getting it, and, you know, ended up being a thing. But she could get a Coke,
Right.
like something out of the vending machine that's in that room, or like, I don't know. It was just like things that are all just like really like just big nothing burgers. Really, it's just policy. It's policy. That's what you kept saying over and over again. It's policy.
Right. And that's policy with everyone in the prison. It's not like this was specialized just to pick on Rick Allen. That's not what I got from it. So the more I read this stuff, the more I'm like I see no mistreatment. I read no mistreatment. Like I'm not buying it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a video of everything. So, I mean, obviously there comes a point, I think it comes up later with Walla, of like him, you know, doing some things that were obviously, but like his assessment was done at that place in Plainfield. And like, so they would assess like, and then, you know, like there's talk about, you know, the medications and then giving him Halidol. And my thing with that was like, okay, like, cause Walla had mentioned like not sleeping and, not eating and things like that. And like, literally I have severe insomnia. I was diagnosed with in my early 20s. And some of the like one of the like first times I think I was awake for it just hit like all of a sudden in my mid 20s of just like I could not go to sleep. And my ex-husband had to take me to, well, I don't remember much of it because I was in a complete like hallucinating delusional state from being awake for almost, I think it was like 67 some hours. I hadn't slept. And like you start to have a psychotic break. You know what I mean? Like, so the Halidol, they gave me Halidol so that I would go to sleep in the hospital. And I basically slept in the hospital. And then they were like, you got to get like, you know, like you can't, this is going to happen every time. I'm like, well, I can't sleep anymore. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was triggered by the birth of my child or what, but it was severe and it's never gone away. And it's getting worse as I get older. And then the medications just, you know, stop working. So there have been times over the years that the insomnia is so bad that after a certain amount of time, I end up in the hospital, and they've given me Halidol several times over the course of my life, you know, for the purpose of insomnia.
And something I want to mention, you know, there's this argument of, you know, whether these confessions is based on psychosis or if these are genuine confessions. And based on, I believe by Harshman's testimony, he said he confessed to things that only the killer would know. or those who are at the crime scene would know, and things that only the killer, other than law enforcement, would know. We'll find that out, like in trial. And if that's true, people can scream psychosis all they want,
Right.
but he's not a premonitionist or whatever. Like, if he explains things that happened in that at that crime scene and what he did, and it is consistent based on the forensics and everything that we know,
And things that
basically,
we don't know.
right, exactly, then we will know that. And like I said, the whole issue of psychosis, mental breakdowns, all those things, they will not matter, in my opinion. But if all of these things are very interpretive and general, then it's going to be pretty, it's going to be kind of weak.
Yeah.
But I have to believe, we'll see. I don't know, but I think law enforcement knows that these confessions, the direct confessions, a lot of them will stick. Some of them won't, because I do believe he was most likely coached to start sullying the actual truth. For example, like the shooting and all that other stuff, things that we know clearly did not happen. But again, I'm basing that on my opinion. But we're going to see on that too, because like I said, we're hearing things about these 60 plus confessions, but we don't really know in particular, other than some of the false things he did say. And that's pretty much it.
You know what, Kay, if you want to just make this specifically about Richard Allen, and you could care 2 forks less about all of the other people that are pretrial detainees in jail, that's totally, you're right. It's a problem in the system that needs to be fixed overall. It is not specific to Richard Allen. And if I have a loved one that commits murder, I am not like, this is the way the system works. If you want change, then change it for all. But the fact is that he is the alleged killer of 2 little girls that were brutally murdered and left in the woods, one completely naked and exposed in every kind of way. So I don't really give 2 forks what you have to say. I wish you would just leave, because she really triggers me. She's a bully. She's been one for such a long time.
Is this Kay you're talking about here?
Oh, God, yes. I know who you are, Kay, too.
And
the plus program, like, people get all up in arms about this. This has been a program that was they've had this since like 2005 or 2006. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't something new, and this was something that they and I can see both sides of it, but because of, they were trying to, the staffing alone for the amount of inmates that would be on a suicide watch, to up the checks that they're checking in on them, right? And so this inmate program, it is incentive to get your sentence reduced there, but it is a program that they have to complete. They have to go through like training, and and then they're assigned. And Galipo, he didn't pick 8. He just said, I'm going to limit it to only 8, just to limit the interaction that he has with potential people that could, we all see how social media is. Look Kagan Klein, up in there talking to every Tom, Dick, and Harry YouTuber, like all of that stuff. Like, that's kind of why it was done. And, but these inmate companions it's a typical thing. I've seen it in other states. It's not odd. It's not rare. Obviously, you're going to have ones that are going to that's going to happen. But at least the warden was aware enough to limit it to only 8 of them could be, with Richard Allen. And then When it became known, they know of the plus program were allowed, and it was only guards, right? So that was something that, I see a lot of people, talking about, but it's like, are you really, really thinking about, like, they're just so one-sided in their approach of this, of like, he's being so mistreated. But imagine how these same people would react if all of a sudden Rick Allen was in Gen Pop. Like, that would be the most unsafe place for them. So therefore, what are they going to do? There's 255. A lot of these, they want to go to these particular units because they're quieter. Because Gen Pop is so loud. The lights are not, you don't have control of the lights. Like, yes, you are in a cell by yourself, but good God, I would definitely rather be in a cell by myself. I'm just saying, like, having to use a toilet in front of like a cellmate or 5 or 4, like, I mean, it's just not this black hole of a dungeon he's dumped in and had no communication whatsoever. I mean, that's evident in the fact that he had hours and hours, hundreds of hours of communication on his tablet. Like, and he was given one when they didn't have to do that. Like,
So I would like to address 2 comments in the chat. So one was by Bootleg, and whether he had any information and discovery about the crimes that he confessed to make it consistent. When he was confessing, that was before he received any discovery. So, now keep in mind, he confessed over at least, and this is at least 60 plus times. I think it was even more than that, but that's the 61 that they focused. So, no, that's not an issue. And then Big Fish, she brought up the issue of isolation. I 100% think long-term solidarity is unacceptable and is detrimental to people's health and well-being, even if they're killers. Well, I disagree. I didn't really give 2 shits if it happened to the Golden State Killer. I still don't. Number 2, he did have, when he was under suicide watch, he had companions, and there was that. Number 2, he still got to see his family. So, as far as that goes,
every day,
we want to be selective of who we want to say it's unacceptable to give, solitary confinement to. And for some reason, in this particular case, because it is polarizing in the true crime community, we want to say how we want to boo-hoo it. I personally don't, and he was not utterly, as far as solitary, as far as not being able to speak to someone. And like you mentioned, all right, great. You want him in Gen Pop? Then someone stabs him. Someone beats the crap out of him. If I understand correctly, he was being threatened by other inmates.
Yeah. So he's been threatened by Greeno and other people outside of jail. It's not like Greeno's not afraid to go to jail. I mean, he's literally said that. He's like, I'll do something to get myself put in there so I can take him out if, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I like Sleuthy Goosey.
I don't. I'm sorry. There's some things in the past, especially with the Kylie Rodney thing. With all due respect, she can kiss my rosy red ass.
Okay, that's your show.
And it's okay if she's on yours. I'm not going to do the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, where it's like I'm not doing that. It's kind of like where if there's someone that that you respect and they communicate with Greeno, I'm not gonna so they're like, well, you talk to someone who communicates with Greeno. Done. It's only direct people that I'll associate that with. But just so it's it's clear. But you can still watch. So yeah, let's see. So I'm not selective over it, and I do define what is as solitary still, and all the studies that they've done operate with people under those same circumstances. Okay, Big Fish. There are people in that prison who also threatened him. So you wanted to put him in Gen Pop so that they can possibly do something to him. All right. Whether it's now as an accused killer, or he's a convicted killer, he's safekeeping. They have to keep him safe.
And I'm not talking about like being insensitive to his mental health, like crisis or issues. Like, I completely sympathize with that. Like I just said about literally going into a state of psychosis over because of this insomnia when I was first diagnosed. Like, it is scary as hell, but that doesn't have anything to do with the conditions of Westville in this particular unit. Like, it's just, this is unfortunately, like, I don't necessarily like how many killers, but then again, on the flip side, how many of these people have been like Garrett Kurtz, for instance. All the people that murdered Nicole Bowen and Ray Hanish, they were out on bond, and to commit these. There are the guy just covered, Bryson Rivers, out on bond for a heinous crime where, I'm sorry, but that was straight up attempted murder. She barely survived. And they let him out on bond, and then he brutally murdered her, So there's like a flip side to everything, and I don't know the answer. I don't like the fact that pre-trial detainees, before they are actually found guilty, like, I don't like that they are stripped of their, freedom when they haven't even been convicted. And that's why, with this one especially, with the PCA as we got it, I'm sorry, I've read a shit ton of those, and that was not strong. It just wasn't. I mean, that's my opinion, but that's why Rosie and Baldwin should have followed through with the meaningful bond hearing. Yes, there's no bond on murder in Indiana, except for there is. If the PCA doesn't prove enough, they have to have a hearing, and they were given that hearing by Judge Gall. And they chose to cancel it after they got the discovery. Why? So all of this stuff, you can be just as mad at his defense attorneys for failing their client in order to at least try to get him out on a bond. Okay. And even if he hadn't been, which probably not, with a double homicide of 2 little girls, but it would have forced the prosecutor to prove his case not beyond reasonable doubt, but beyond the PCA. Like, that's a huge deal. His attorneys have failed him. Why did they never ask for a mental health, like a competency, when all this was going on? He wanted to be transferred to a medical hospital, and Walla was like, you have to talk to your attorneys about that. Like, there are things that like are being done that are wrong to him that are just as much at fault. Like, there's not a answer here. Like, I don't know what the answer would be for pretrial detainees, but I don't like it. But it is a systematic judicial system failure, and it is not specific to RA. It is not like they've targeted him out, and like, now that all this stuff's come out, I mean, it's just crazy that people are so dead set that he is being just a prisoner of war. Why don't you go ask a prisoner of war what it was actually like to be a prisoner of war?
Yeah, they prisoner of wars.
Like
yeah,
nothing like this.
There's no protocols in prisoner of wars like that. And again, people are coming out. Okay, do safekeeping. Why treat him the way that they did? Treat him like what? You mean gave him maybe extra incentives and favors, like a new tablet without having to pay for it, getting to see his family? I don't know what I mean. And again, he is an accused child killer of 2 children. And
I bet people don't feel bad for that other inmate that's been on a waiting list for months and months and months to get a tablet, and they didn't get one. I bet no one feels bad for that person that's been waiting their turn for one. And then Alan gets 2 because he is getting special treatment because he of the situation that he's in.
At any bond hearing, okay, let's think this through. All right. So they do a bond hearing. They let this guy go free. You don't think someone's not going to try to take a shot at this guy? I mean, hello, everyone. There's a particular content creator out there that is basically threatened if it doesn't go
Well, maybe
the
they
way
could
that
have
it's
raised
supposed to
that,
go.
like that $40,000 to put him, off grid somewhere to keep him safe,
I mean,
But it's
maybe.
just to me, it's just like so hypocritical to be like, oh, he should have been in Carroll County Jail. Like, who in the hell would want that man there?
With no mental health treatment? Okay.
He is going
Like,
to die there, and he is. If he is innocent, he's going to be dead. Like, is that really like the answer here? But no, we're going to harp on all of this wrongful doing. I'm telling you, if this part, this solitary, the safekeeping, I found a case that's very similar. It's not going to fly in appeal court. It's not. Now, yeah, someone eating their own feces and washing their face in it and refusing to eat and these things, like, but at the same time, that's such a sign of like a mentally broken woe, feel sorry for him. And yeah, I do. Like, you can't be right to eat your own shit. But like, on the flip side of that, like, there's how can you, two children were murdered and brutally, and the atrocity of that, like, who would think someone would be possible of doing that? Like, I just get some of it is like, I understand, and there are things that the state law enforcement have done, Goal has done, that really tick me the hell off. And it makes me mad because the burden of proof is on them at a trial. And if they don't fork and prove it, like, the anger goes straight towards them. But right now, like, in all of these, y'all read these transcripts, it's like there's nothing. There's nothing to substantiate what is being, I don't know. It's just, the more I read them and the more, like, I'm just like, what is here?
I essentially, basically, I don't see any wrongdoing or mistreatment of Richard Allen. That's what I'm getting from it. If I truly felt that there was, I mean, I would say so. But that's my opinion. Clearly, whether people actually read these testimonies or not,
Yeah.
some people are coming up with different opinions. But I'm looking at it, I'm reading it, and I'm like, I see no issue here. I really don't. I see, if anything, he was given a few more concessions than he actually deserved. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, that's right, Big Fish. Like, jail and prison reform is something that we should all be passionate about. But it's just like misusing it just because you feel a certain way about this particular case, when it is a national issue, like, it really is. And
But to me, I always feel like that's a deflection of the argument. Of course, there needs
yeah,
to be a
it
lot of
is.
reforms. There needs to be a lot of reforms.
Yeah.
What does this case have to do with national reform? I just feel like it's like that's just a different topic. It's a different
Well, it's
discussion
because
altogether.
they're trying to opine that this is just like, because people that don't know the prison system or have ever
Mhm.
watched any documentaries or YouTube, anything to see
Right.
inside of a prison and what it's really like, then they don't know. So they can be manipulated by the words that they choose to use to describe his conditions, when he has light, he has like, there's they I mean, it's just not what
I
we're
hear what you're
making it
saying.
out to be.
I,
It's just
yeah,
not.
I hear what you're saying.
He doesn't
And
have a right to privacy.
No, I agree with that. But the point is for those who
He's
are
in a
claiming,
prison, pre-trial detainee or not. You don't have a right to privacy. So
I
his phone
just,
calls and all that, and like, no, like that's not. It's just not it. It's not. It's a moot. And the thing is like I know Rosie knows that. As that's the thing that ticked me off when I'm reading this through this is like, what was this really for? Rosie knows he's had plenty pretrial detainees, even in jail. He knows that those GTL, that those phone calls are all monitored. He is a criminal defense lawyer. Him and Baldwin both know that. But yet, so who is he arguing these points for? Not the judge, because she knows that.
right.
It's for the audience. That's like the only thing that I could conclude. Like it's for the audience to get them all, up in up emotional about it.
Yeah, and like I said, people need to realize again, this is a high-profile murder case, and again, the people who are making the claims should at least read.
Hold on just 1 second.
That's fine. You should read the testimonies. You should read, all the motions, everything that comes out, and I guess apparently some people aren't doing that. Some may be. Like I don't want to sit there and insult anyone. I don't know how you read these and go, man, he was really poorly mistreated. I mean, yeah, if you're hearing it strictly from the defensive perspective, you can question it, but what other thing do you have unless you're looking at both sides? I feel so much empathy for all of Richard Allen's family and people not knowing the facts and screaming he's innocent is only giving them false hope. Something that I find interesting is weeks after, I believe, the arrest, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but in November, he made the statement of, if it gets to be too much for my wife, I'll tell the police everything. I mean, I don't know, like maybe to others that might sound logical, but that sounds like someone who's guilty. You can't just convict solely on that. But if you look at totality of the evidence, that's one piece of something where you look at and go, that's odd. And if it's too much for your wife, why would confessing, like, that's weird. That kind of makes me think, like, did she suspect something? Did she not? I mean, I don't, it's conjecture. I don't know, but it's such an odd statement.
Yeah, I think that I don't like it when people disparage her or her mother, nor do I like it when they use them of like proof of his innocence. I'm a mom. I would be right there where his mother is, regardless of whether he was like I thought he was innocent or guilty. But if you came, like I've said this before, if you came in here and they were arrested mine, knowing him for 16, going on 17 years, no. Like just because the police arrested him does not that I'm not going to like believe them. But to go watch Evil Lives Here. It is like literally a whole show about this, about families that like, yeah, I guess when we look back on things, we can see that there were some signs, but otherwise, like they never knew they were living in the same house with a killer or a serial killer. I mean, they've got like 5 seasons of it.
Dennis Rader, BTK, right there.
Watch Locked Up and like literally see inside prisons. Like this is all, and Galipo, Rosie's trying to get him, and he says, concrete, right? Yes, sir. Steel, rebarb, the whole 9 yards. Prison, sir. Toilet, absolutely. Steel, I'm assuming. Mounted on the floor of the wall. It's mounted. Yes. A couple of feet from his bed, right? Again, standard. And Rosie's like, basically he goes to the bathroom pretty much where he lays his head and goes to sleep. I don't know if it's where he lays his head because he could put his head on the other side and the toilet's on this side, but he's like, bet, yeah, a couple feet, sure, yeah, it's all standard.
1 second.
What do they want to do? Give him a little house inside of a prison? Like,
1 second. Big Fish, would you change your mind if those confessions, as we find out, actually contains direct evidence that only the killer would know, would that change your perspective whether he's in his right mind or not? Because I think that's really the key is what's in the confession. I think that's important. And what's also, and even if it's not in that, if he does have confessions that are direct, that talk about things that only law enforcement and the killer would know, that sensitive held information, I think then it doesn't matter, in my opinion. Sorry, go on.
Yes, you are sentenced or detained in jail and not to jail abuse. 100% agree with that. But again, all these hearings are the defense has, and they've had hearings about this before to prove this, and they haven't. So, like,
so what else do we have with Galipo or Galipo or whatever we want to call him? Johnny Boy,
a lot.
The warden.
Yeah, he goes in and he talks about the unit and that there's like the different pods, and he's assigned to A01. There's 4 of them that are in this particular place where they have their suicide watch, literally to keep someone from killing themselves, which everyone should like want for him. Like, I don't know. It's just so you didn't put one in there just because it was him, correct? And has no audio, and he says correct. Like, it's standard. Again, it's standard, and there have been. You can look it up. Like, I just like in my video, in the description is from the IDOC as a whole for the state of Indiana, in all of the prisons and like centers, and they do house pretrial detainees, and none of that with it's not specific to just like Richard Allen. Maybe for Galipo because he was only there for 5 years. And he questions him about his lights and was his cell unique to the others in his pod or in the facility as a whole with regard to how the lighting works. His lighting was never interfered with. There's a light, and he has a button in his cell where he can basically a night light, and so he can dim it. And then Richard Allen, even in this unit, is complaining about the noise and that's getting to him, which, oh man, it would totally get to me. I would go bananas if I was locked in something. I can't even like ride a bus, like be in anything that I'm not in control of. Like, I have claustrophobia issues. So like, yeah, but
well, and the key with that is that he believes
you place myself at the bridge that day. So like,
but I mean, they believe, like, he believes that was, pointed towards him, those noises, and it's not.
Yeah,
but that's how he's looking at it.
That was the one thing where it was like, I was like, this kind of gives a kind of a look at like his like a little bit of like self-centeredness. I'm trying to find it because where he was, like, well, they're kind of all going through that. Like, I'll find it. It'll come up in my notes at some point. So, and there was another thing. There's no contact visits. No, like contact, like a person could come and visit you in a segregated unit, except for Mr. Allen. He was the first one I've had in 5 years, and they made accommodations for him. And he was like, yeah, we did. And we didn't have to.
again, like I said
There was
before,
nothing saying that we
they,
had to do that.
like I said before, they gave him concessions that others didn't have. To be mistreated is also to show there is exceptional mistreatment compared to the other inmates, and not
They're
saying
not getting
that.
visits. All of these
No,
255 other ones aren't. Like that sucks.
yeah, any other inmate breaks their tablet in a fit of rage, they're not
They
getting
don't
another
get
one.
another one. Some of them don't even get one.
I
They're on a
say,
waiting list for one because they don't have enough for all of the inmates there, which, I think they should, but they don't. So you have to be a waiting list. And so because RA broke his, he got another one where someone else didn't. Like that's upsetting. And then just the whole into like trying to get into like the restraints and how those were
oh, a leash. He was.
abusive and
I like the language salad between. Was it Rosie or was it Baldwin or was it one of the others? I think it was Rosie who was trying to call it a leash, and the warden was trying to say it's not a leash, and it's like,
and it's standard policy though.
it's like,
That's the thing where this isn't gonna this part like of him being this like prisoner of war isn't just it's not gonna fly in a higher court. It's just not. Like it's just not. They could get in trouble for giving him accommodations that are not that are atypical of that unit. They could literally get in trouble for that kind of stuff. So for giving him, like those types of things, having going above and beyond to give him things because he is a pretrial detainee, clearly going through some mental health things. The warden, the people there could get in trouble for breaking policy. But they did it anyway for him.
and look how that matters. Everyone still thinks that he was horribly mistreated. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And about Galipo had said about like the suicide companions, he was like, I was trying to not to expose information. That's why he limited it. Because there's 50 to 70 suicide companions in that plus program. Mm-hmm. But he took the initiative to only limit it to 8 that could do this with Richard Allen because he was trying to limit the information out. And even Walla said that of like, like with Boone and her files and stuff, like she's so ridiculous. But like the judge said to her, like, you do know that because you don't want to be moved to a private cell, that the person that you share a cell with could look at this information and release it. And you have to like, basically you're waiving your right to that of like, that could happen. And that, so she wanted to stay in that cell, so.
Very true.
And they didn't want the companions to have access to his like legal things. Like if he were to just throw them outside of the little slot or whatever. That was another thing. And then Walla is the one that really gets more into like the mental, like health aspects. This is more of just like standard policy for Westville, which is not a maximum super max. It's not. You can look it up. It's a whole list. They're all listed with what they house there. It's medium to minimum security prison. It's not where he'll go if he's sentenced. He'll probably like I don't know. I just think there's other things that that could be focused on other than like the things that are just Shakespearean and emotional based and like, you know, like, well, what if it was your loved one? Well, of course, that would forkin' suck if that was my loved one. But so, like, so would someone like care? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and no one wants to go through this. It's an unfortunate thing, but
Yeah.
like I said, they didn't arrest this guy for nothing.
And they're not required to put everything. That was my point about that motion to let bail. They're not required to put everything in the PCA that they have. But
No.
what they are required to do at a motion to let bail hearing is prove beyond the PCA that a reasonable jury would find him guilty of the crime that he is indicted on. And that would have we would have all known a little bit more about what the state has against him. And that's going to matter. I'm sorry if I'm sitting on that jury and it's about the confessions aren't something that we don't know. And they're just like, I did it. I did it. I did it. Or like, you know, something like that. Like, no, that's not going to fly. If there is just a bullet that's going to get experted out and be the opinion of the jury to just basically on which one they like the best, the experts, like if they don't have more, you can't just have like his saying, yeah, I was there and I was there at this time and I walked this, and their lawyers backed it up with their little press statement that they released. So like but if I were on a jury at a trial and there was not more, and like, I'm not even saying, like, there are some like Stephen Stearns, Wade Wilson, just sums of late. And I'm like, they're freaking guilty. Like, clear before they were found guilty. But with Richard Allen, I am still at that point where like I am not all the way convinced, and it's mostly because I feel like it's the state's fault for the way that the charging document with the clause of the two, and then the January of 2024 of what they followed it up with. Like, so that is like, you're basically saying there could be a third party. Like, they have not changed that on his charging document. Like, she took off the kidnapping, but if you read that charging document, obviously the state is admitting that there could be someone else involved. Like, even as close as January of 2024, the prosecution reading the ex parte. Like, what? There are things that have been done. The judge not allowing cameras, even though she allowed cameras in the one hearing. There are things that are upsetting, and that I'm not like, I'm just kind of on the fence. I'm not going to come out and say that he is guilty. I think that's wrong. I'm not going to come out and say that he is innocent. That's wrong too. Like, you know, like that. And I can remember back when I first covered this, I was about the only one that called him the alleged instead of the killer. Like, I made it a point to be like, he is the alleged murderer. Whole first episode where I did that.
And going back to the whole, like, if there could be more people involved, the more as this goes on, the less likely I am to believe that, because if he is making these confessions, I don't see him sparing anyone regarding that, especially if he has a come to Jesus moment like he claimed he did. Then he would want to tell the truth, and I think that would have happened. Now, I can't say it 100%, but I lean towards the unlikely aspect of it.
Yeah. And again, like on like the guards there, the one is like he wasn't even living here in 2017, and I think it was in 2019 he was in Kentucky. He was like a guard there, and then he was a coal miner, you know. And but like, why didn't the defense, why didn't they play that video for the judge, or at least for the judge to see, of like, were they wearing, you know, like, what is the situation here with these guards? Request that video and play it. Like, I don't know. But I don't know. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know if that's even a thing you can do. But they did play some videos during this hearing. So, did you have any more things that you found?
No, everything that I stated initially is what really popped out to me.
Yeah. Yeah, just like the asking of him, you know, like personally, like, do you need anything? Like, that's not something that's afforded those other other people there, or other pretrial detainees.
No, I think it's anyone that's, you know, that has read the testimonies, the ones that are available, and you know, read any of the coverage or listened to any of the coverage, if anything, that's not readily available. I just do not see anything that shows mistreatment on his part. And if anything, they went a little above and beyond as far as we look from the prison scope of things, if we look at it from that context.
Yeah.
And to me personally, I mean, other than the timeline, you know, that would show that it could be no one other than Rick Allen, who is Bridge Guy. The bullet, I don't know about that one, and I don't want to skip ahead on things too much. But to me, the ultimate thing is the weight of the confessions. That's going to be the big one for me.
Yeah.
And whatever else the prosecution, the state might have close to the vest, if anything.
Yeah, those are mine too, but they're reversed. The first one is my number one. The confessions are secondary.
Timeline and confession. Okay.
Like, yeah, I want to know more about what the evidence the state has, and then the what is in these confessions. Are they what, because we don't know what these people, what was it Harshman, like, we don't know what he considers a direct confession. If he considers a direct confession, like, I killed those girls in the woods on February 13th, and it's something that the public would have known, like, that, to me, I, as a juror, I would put weight on that, of like, no, like, why is this man doing this? And even Walla later had said, like, I don't know, he was doing that, and then he asked to be transferred to the Logansport Mental Hospital so he could be closer to his family. Like, was he doing that for that purpose at all? And then and Rosie tries to make this point, and again, like, about the GTL and the privacy, and he had no privacy. He couldn't even talk to his wife. And again, that's something that Rosie knows is the truth and the standard. So who is all that for? It has to be for the audience, because he knows it. The judge knows it. Everyone that's in court that deals with pretrial detainees or inmates, like, they know it. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. But we are going to find out for sure.
Hopefully. That's the thing though that a lot of people don't understand. Like these motion and limines, like you can go to all different kinds of courts that are live, and like these are things that are argued, and there are things that are withheld from the jury from both sides. And some of them that have been withheld from the jury on the defense side, like prior criminal history, that's been one that has bothered me in so many trials, because the prior criminal history is, oh, I murdered someone. They murdered someone, 10 years ago in this particular way that is similar to what they just did again. And that can't be brought into the trial. So it goes both ways on this kind of thing.
Right. But like so far, we know what's not being admitted and what is. So, I mean, at this point, I think once we look at a timeline, if they can establish a timeline that it can only be Rick Allen who's bridge guy, and they do a successful job with that. They do a successful job with the confessions. Because once you all, like you said, if you can establish the timeline that there could be that bridge guy could be no one other than Rick Allen.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. Then the confession on top of that as well. That could even possibly be more important depending on how the trial goes. Like we can speculate and we can predict all day long, but until it happens, we don't know. But I think that's important. Like I said, I really, again, the bullet thing, I don't know. We'll see what the experts have to say with that, how that goes, if at all. But to me personally, unless shown otherwise, I think that's the weakest. But it was one of the things in the PSA that the probable cause affidavit, that was one of the things that was used to arrest him and charge him for the murder. So, but we'll see.
Yeah, and like people have brought up that people do make false confessions.
Sure.
There's a whole series that I watched. I think there's a couple seasons of it about this very thing. Followed many cases with false confessions, and and that's why, as a juror, they need to have an expert on that, and they also need, I would take it that under advisement of and then the read technique being used, but and obviously coercion. But what coercion can you coercion after the fact, down the road, because of this getting yelled at by Holman, broke him, and then later on, months and months later on, from October, end of October to what was it, April or May? Then all those months later is then when he was coerced from that, and
that's going to be a difficult thing to try to say it was coerced. The best thing that they got with that is psychosis, that he was mentally broken from the system that he was in, and so he started eating his shit. He started to confess to things that aren't true. He gave inconsistent statements. That's what they're going to go with. But unlike whether it's Jesse Miss Kelly in the West Memphis 3 case, or if it's Brandon Dassey in the Avery Dassey case in the murder of Teresa Hallbach, they can try to make a claim of coercion with those two, although I don't believe that they were coerced in any way. But still, they can make that argument. Yeah. I don't believe they can make that argument really here. They got to go with psychosis, that he lost his shit and started doing unusual things, and confession was one of them. 60 plus times, maybe more.
Yeah, and just because you're doing unusual things and confessing doesn't mean that it doesn't bear on the truth of the confessions. I don't know. I don't know why I said that, but it just came flying out of my mouth. I did write a note on here, and I was like, imagine how many inmates he would be confessing to if he was in general population at a jail.
Well, and typically prison snitches, they're not usually deemed very credible. Every once in a while they can be, but not always.
Yeah. And Galipo, he doesn't, like I said earlier, he doesn't have, like, there are things that but again, there's at least video. If he's being thrown around and tossed about, and they act like, what was the one where he was he was banging his head into the wall repeatedly. Like, this is what Walla had said, like, and to the point, like, he was deteriorating and doing that. And then imagine if they just didn't give him anything the hell at all. Like, people would be flipping the fork out about that. Like, oh my God, you just let him go insane and then kill himself by banging his head into the wall. Like,
Yeah.
can you imagine if he wasn't eating and they just like inserted a feeding tube into him? How many people would be freaking out about that?
It's a damned if you look, it's tribalism
It is.
where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't when it comes to anything involving him. People have
Yeah.
seen, there's, I don't want to say everyone because that's not fair, but people in the Richard Allen is innocent camp, they have planted firm. They're not going to change their mind no matter what happens. Richard Allen can confess to it. He can give details to the crime. And what people are going to say was that, well, he was fed that information. That's why he knows. It's bullshit. It's like there's no matter what, that, and I'll say there's a radical group of Richard Allen supporters. You're just not going to change their mind no matter what. Now
No,
there
we're
are other
not.
people who just aren't sure, or maybe they believe he might be innocent, or may believe he may have committed the crimes but feel that he's being mistreated,
Yeah.
by police, by the prison, by the state, what have you, and that it's all stacked against him regardless. You're going to have that, and fair enough. But but those people's minds can be changed based on the evidence that's presented and provided.
Exactly.
I hope that the testimonies kind of has shown that he was not as mistreated and a prisoner of war as which was claimed by the defense. I hope, if anything, some open-minded people took that away. I hope.
I'm a fence sitter, but you're not going to move me by filigree and like Shakespearean emotionally charged
Right.
stuff. It's not in my personality to be me moved by that. Like, none of this moves me. The Franks, they had me a little emotional at first, and then I reread them and I reread them again, and I was like, and then some of the like, I'm not moved by that kind of stuff. And so, but some people are, and that's why these other extremists of he's literally, I quote, he's fucking innocent type people. You do not know that. You do not know that at all. Just like the people that say he's effing guilty do not know that he is guilty. Like, but they create these echo chambers of, if you're not with us, you're against us. Therefore, we're gonna like do a K, like what K came in here and did. And there is a few people that when they enter chats, no matter where they are, it changes the chat environment and it makes it very toxic and it becomes very bullying. And I can give you a list if you like.
No,
These
I
are
think
the
we
things
all
that
know.
I pay attention to, because for me, patterns are my judge of a person, of like how they conduct themselves everywhere that they go. And like, I'm not moved by this stuff with his housing or the order to safekeep him. That's not going to move me. But what will move me is if these confessions are, just general statements. And if there is no evidence beyond the bullet, I'm going to be moved by that.
Yeah, and
So therefore I am a fence sitter.
and you talk about how you're a fence sitter. Now, I would describe myself as someone. I think Richard Allen is guilty, and I said that before. I think he is guilty. I don't know that he's guilty.
I think he's a part of it.
And
there's no way of getting around. Like, what do you like? You'd have to get me. You'd have. So I say that, but like, you'd have to get me to believe that there was like someone else out there parked where he was, like, and walking where he was, but didn't see these people, but saw these people, that was wearing the same clothes as the person on the bridge when he puts himself on the bridge, that somehow there was like another person out there that he didn't see. He didn't pass this other person that was dressed just like him. Like, that's a leap to get to.
Right. And
after that, none of us know. We were not there.
yeah. And getting back to my thought. So, you know, there are things that can change my mind by saying, for example, okay, I think he's guilty. And like you mentioned, the confessions, if the confessions turn out to be very general, all of them inconsistent, but nothing that, for example, because I'm taking Holman at his word when he says there are things in there that only the killer would know. And so if that's not the case, then I look at that as discredibility, even if he doesn't mean it to be, even of his mind, if he believes that. If whatever the confessions that they are going to either read or play on audio or what have you, because the recordings of it, him talking to his wife or his mother, I don't know if anything else was recorded other than what was stated, so that you have to also look at statements versus what is recorded. I want to know these things. And if for any reason none of that stuff sways me, well, that's a cringe moment for me. I have to reconsider things. I think that the timeline, I think, is pretty solid and concrete. So that part of it is going to be hard to sway me, but I will still let it play out. I could change my mind on that. The bullet thing, like, again, just mentioned it before. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But the confession and the timeline is going to be the big things for me.
100%.
And even if I still believe he was guilty and he's found innocent, I'm not going to go crazy and go, let's get a lynch mob, let's saddle up boys, and let's go ahead and hang this guy. I'm not going to do that either, just like we didn't do it with Casey Anthony, and we didn't do it with other people, or O.J. Simpson. It's just, it is what it is. I could still have my opinion, I can have my belief of innocent and guilt, but I'm not going to be neurotic about it either.
Yeah. Yeah, like, the justice system is flawed. And two things can be true at the same time. Like, someone can be guilty and the justice system flawed. Someone can be innocent and the justice system can be flawed. Like, I don't like any of it. Like, yeah. But it is what it is until people want to come together on just one case of, like, really push for. No one gives a damn about all of those other people that are in there. They haven't spoken a word about the way that they're treated, and they're on the same unit as him.
Right.
And there are safekeeping pretrial detainees in state prisons. Like, so what about all those guys? What about the ones that were found innocent at trial? Like, I don't know. I think a lot of people just want to, and regardless of how logical you try to be, unemotional about it and look at things and prove with, like, case law, with, like, the rules of Indiana rules of evidence, like Indiana code, they still will freak out on you. It's like, I'm not the one saying this. This is literally the case law. Like, this is literally the rules of evidence. This is literally this is the appeals court. This is like, what? So it just, to me, it's just created this chasm of turning this case into just a complete and utter, just disgusting. And I feel like both sides do it, and I don't like it on both sides. And then all the going personal on people and calling people stupid and You're an idiot if you think he's innocent. You're an idiot if he thinks he's guilty. You're not a critical thing, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're ugly, just all of that stuff is like, just
I mean, it's tribalism,
literally
and
take it in, get mad on here if you want. But as soon as this computer goes off, like, I'm going to go back to my real life, and like,
right.
none of it's going to affect me. And neither are the opinions of people that I don't know. And especially the people like Kay and the other ones that I could give 2 forks less. They don't affect my life. Yeah, they may make me upset for the fact that the families have to hear their rhetoric, especially when they go running around saying that the families don't give a shit about who is actually the killer. They just want anybody imprisoned for it. That is sick to say. Like, have you ever had a family member or someone that you love murdered? Because you clearly haven't. Because there's no way in hell that I would want my aunt's murderer, just anybody. No, I want the person that actually killed her to be the one that pays for her murder. She's never going to come back. There's nothing else I can do about that. But you damn sure wouldn't want just like, oh, just he's put someone behind bars. That is so nonsensical. It's insensitive. And it's wrong to say about families of murder victims.
Beyond a
Like,
reasonable doubt. That's really what it comes down to. That's what we should all expect.
like Miss
Is
Cheryl. Like, that was so important to her. And I asked her, like, and she's like, what? Why would I want to go through all that? And then that person not be the person that killed my child. And people are mad at them because of the most illogical reasons, and I just don't like that. I don't. Like, I remember just Joe Warnock. He pled guilty because he was going to make his children testify, who were in bed with their mother when he brutally mutilated her body. They had blood all over them, hiding in a closet. Going to make them testify, so he got a plea deal. But like, he did it. If they had arrested someone else that didn't kill her, I would be livid. I would be raising hell because her killer is still out there and that could kill someone else, for one. And for two, she's not getting the what she deserves. The person that did it paying for it. Like,
time out.
it's asinine. I really wish people would stop saying it.
Time out. The victims were not Mike and Becky's children. They were family. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to fucking hear that in this channel. All right? They're suffering. I don't want to hear anything wise. Well, they're not. Come on.
Them. They were their guardians. They raised them.
Love them. Love them. They're blood. Even if they weren't blood and they took them in as their own, that's family. I just see, and this is the other problem too. Secondary victims in crimes like this, and it's always the family. I see it in the Maura Murray case. I see it in the West Memphis 3 case. I see it with the Han Lee case. I see it with all of these things where the families always become victimized by people. Oh, well, there's this and that. Like, no, stop it. Like, just stop it. If there's a legitimate thing to question families on anything, that's fine. Yeah, bye-bye to you too. Blanket immunity. Fuck you. Blanket immunity makes you biased. Yeah.
These are the same people that think Richard Allen is innocent without actually even knowing all the facts of the case. But the families are guilty.
Yeah, yeah.
Without any actual evidence of anything.
Yeah. I mean, what the fuck is Becky and Mike on trial for? Like, fuck you. I'm sorry. Fuck you.
People are so angry that, like, that's one of my, that there is a park in honor of those girls and that they raise money for that park and keep it running. That pisses me the fuck off. And the other victims out there that start fundraisers and that they like actively try to pay it forward so that someone else's kid isn't fucking murdered.
I mean, I could tell you, like,
I wouldn't be able to get up out of my bed if my child was murdered.
I mean, just the fact that, it's, grandparents or whatever. It's like my mother loves my nephews, loves them to death. It would be soul crushing if anything happened to any of them. But like in this case, we're talking about legal guardianship, right? With Mike and Pat, Mike and Becky with Libby. It's like loved her to death. Oh, yeah. Laugh, fun boy.
Yeah,
That's good. No, I got show your ass.
Vile.
Show your ass. Please show your ass. I don't care. Go ahead. I will never be called to the stand. Yeah, because I'm not a fucking murderer.
What does that mean? I don't get it.
I like what? Like as an expert witness? No, I would assume not. I'm a content creator. I wouldn't assume that I would. But so I have about another hour left. Should we try to cover someone else or what?
I need a short break before we do that. I have just been.
There are no breaks on burn. No, there's no water. There's no breaks on burn after reading.
I know, right?
Now go ahead.
Look at the okay, where we're at as far as so the next person that testified for the defense on this motion to dismiss or the motion to suppress hearing was the lead investigator of Westville Internal Affairs, Kaniba Maps, and we don't have a transcript of hers.
Yeah, I don't have anything with that.
But basically, she employed there 27 years. She's they have she did say that employees do not have access to the system to use for personal use, so kind of thinking of Walla there. That Mullins came in and interviewed Alan, and she supplied him with the equipment to do so. She gave law enforcement an access code to ViaPath and GTL to obtain Alan's communications, all within this is big nothing burgers. The state did not facilitate any meetings between law enforcement and staff. They did not speak about the investigation. Like, she did not personally speak about the investigation. She was asked if she was aware of any investigation into the guards wearing Norse pagan patches on their vests. She said yes, but it is not something that she handled herself. Find that person, pull them on the stand, please. Ask about if the Plus program was a part of her job. She said no. They do it for a time cut in their sentence. However, it is not a promise. AI has had possession of the confession letter to the warden. He tries to confess twice, but they only that one, I don't know what that was about. She had the request made by Alan. So she had 2 requests made by Alan to speak with the warden. It is common for more than one person to be in the control room. And she said yes, which is a contradiction of Galipo. He had said that one person is in the control room. This is to view the monitors, the video of each cell. Do you go talk to Alan about the letter? She did not interview Alan. She confirmed that she received the 2 requests from Alan to speak with Warden and, in quotes, to plead guilty. That was what the IA Internal Affairs was told, that's why he wanted to speak to the warden. And then next up is Jerry Holman. It's pretty short. Do you want me to go, since I don't know, like you did the wall one and do the and then I can take my break to get a cracker and go to the bathroom again?
Yeah, so your phone broke up for a second. Can you repeat
Oh.
that? I do apologize.
Where? What part?
About Jerry Holman, but I didn't hear because
Yeah.
the only one that I took notes on was the testimony of Lieutenant Jerry Holman given at hearing on motion to dismiss on July 30th. I think you covered that already, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
and then, but this is on July 31st.
Yeah, let me see. I don't think I did the one yet with Holman on the 31st.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fact I didn't.
Well,
Believe me,
it's not very long. I can go through that one, and then the next person up is Walla.
Walla, okay.
And then you'll be able to take the lead, and I can go get a cracker or something and go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that works. That works great.
Okay, so Lieutenant Jerry Holman, this is on the motion to suppress. This is on July 31st of 2024. The direct exam was by Bradley Rosie. So Rosie asked him, are you generally familiar with the Rick Allen detention circumstances, or have you been familiarized with them over the past 18 months or so? And he says, yes, he was in the White County Jail initially. And then Holman says Carroll County, White County, because that was kind of one of the things I was like, where all has he been? And then from White County to Westville and Westville to Wabash. Are all those right? And Holman said yes. Rosie, what, did I say that right? Was it Rosie?
Bradley Rosie?
Yeah, that was the direct here.
Oh.
He had asked him, like, and do you acknowledge that it is accurate to say that some of his conduct while he's been detained has been a part of this ongoing investigation in this case? Holman says conduct. Rosie says, yeah, the things he's saying, the things he's doing, the things the way he's acting. And Holman says the statements that he's made. And Rosie says all those kinds of things. And Holman says, are you asking about statements that he's made? And Rosie says, yes, yeah, well, and the way he's acted. And Holman says, yes. So then it gets into regarding his detention at Westville. I asked him to monitor his phone calls, and that is Trooper Brian Harshman. He did say that at some point Detective Vito was involved in that, but mostly documentation and investigation, and it's going to be through Brian Harshman, who we have the transcripts for. Investigator Mullins, this is a question from Rosie, from the prosecutors doing some interviews up at Westville as well. Am I correct about that? And he said, yes, Steve Villains, Rich Davies, myself, and Brian Harshman, I believe, were the only ones that went up there and interviewed correction officers and inmates, which is depositions. Were they monitoring his phone calls? Once he had made the first couple confessions, at some point after that, we decided to subpoena any other records that the prison might have had, and they sent those to us. Nobody from the prison contacted us. And they're trying to get him on this, like, there's like the points they're trying to make are not for people that know, like the lawyers and the judge. About, like, so basically you're using GTL as your conduit for essentially surveilling his communications to the outside. He's like, we were monitoring his phone calls. Yes. I'm just like, duh.
Is it me, or does it seem like a rehashing of the first testimony, or is there things there?
A lot of them are, and like the points that they're making are just like common knowledge things. They're like, people know you don't have a right to privacy when you're a pretrial detainee or otherwise. And so he's asked, he would have like, about how is it that you know whether or not those phone calls would be phone calls he would have had with his lawyers, other than just hearing his lawyer's voice. He said, right. Well, the prison has it set up that way. So it's like, we're not. The prison has like, that is a exception to the non-privacy like policies and laws and procedure. So they don't have access to his communications, and it's not a part of the record. Like, that's not a part of it. Let's see, the other things I had. There was one where it was this was a Rosie asked, okay, and one of the things that you did was went out and got subpoenas and rounded up more information about his circumstances at the prison above and beyond the phone calls. And Holman says, correct. And Rosie says, and about what was that information? And Holman says, what I told you earlier was an audio, videotape movements, statements from the prison, documentation from the correction officers that were conducting the suicide watch door. I think they call themselves door logs or sheets. They were keeping corrections officers. At some point it switched. They did use prisoners as a companion program, but I think after he started making the confessions, they switched and no longer allow the prisoners to do that. And they have the corrections officers. So we got all those logs from the warden himself. Like, he kept trying to like get him. I was like, yeah, he wrote a letter to him. Internal affairs, any information that you got from them. There's really nothing moving about it. Just okay.
Yeah,
This is Rosie. Okay. Have you heard him on any of those phone calls assert his innocence? And he said, I did not know. Okay. Have you ever read any reports where he asserted his innocence? Holman says no. You interviewed him twice before you arrested him, right? And Holman says once. I just interviewed him once. There were 2 interviews with law enforcement. And Holman says correct. And they dropped that. The motion to suppress Holman's interview with him. The defense did. That was weird. Unexpected, I think. I'd like to know. I want to know why. That bothers me. Like, I want to know why they dropped that. And like, I'm not saying like in a negative or positive way that they dropped it. I'm just like wondering.
You're curious.
Like, it's something that like they've decided like, no, we don't want this suppressed because we want to show this to the jury, you know, like
Right.
in a way of like, whoa, look, all of a sudden there's missing. Because I do think it's bullshit that the non-custodial, which they're not going to be argue that against the Indiana rules of like that's procedure. But like, I don't know. I think it would be, I think that it could have been a call to not suppress that because of like strategy. That's all I was thinking about it. Or they just know that it's moot because it's not going to happen. I don't know. Did he exert his innocence in any of those phone calls? Holman says, no, I would not listen to the calls on a daily basis though. So talk to Harshman. There was really nothing like super. Yeah, like oh, this was one. Did you ever go there to interview Dr. Walla? He said no. The psychologist in this case, he said no. Okay, what about Warden Galipo? No. What about the internal affairs officer? I called up there and I told them I needed to come in here and interview Mr. Allen. That one was like, I had a question mark by that. I was like, what? Why did Holman say that? I gotta basically like they're talking about WC unit again, and like Rosie asked, is it like a mini prison within a prison? And Holman said, not always, but I have I have been in, he said, okay. Or I also been in the administration building. There's a basement there with an interview room. And Rosie asked him, have you heard things that Rick Allen said? And he said, yes. These are incriminating, right? And he said, correct. This goes into the CVS. So to CVS or to contacting a family member of his to further the investigation. And he said some things, yes. Like obviously they went to CVS, so he makes a statement about that. We went to CVS. He had made a statement that he used a box cutter and that he had threw the box cutter in the dumpster at CVS. So we followed up on that, as everyone should expect them to do. And if they didn't, they would, this is like, again, just these oxymorons of acting. So we followed up on that and make sure to see if CVS issued box cutters, and they did. But it was too far along. We couldn't locate where that day's dumpster was, obviously, almost 6 years later. I think that was my last real. Let's see if there's anything in cross. No. All right. Holman's done.
All right. Why don't you?
Obviously, people these are just the things that I wanted to point out. But everyone should go. You have access to these. You can find them in the Facebook group. Criminality has them listed in the description of her channel. Twitter, you can find them all over the place. Read them for yourself, because whether it's my opinion, Rick's opinion, whomever you're listening to, you can read some of this stuff for yourself and come to your own conclusions. And that's what everybody should do. We're just people.
Agreed.
We're literally just people. And so are all the other people telling you to believe them. And if anyone is trying to push you to be oh, if you're not on board with everything I say, then you're a monster. Disassociate from them. But
or
don't come in and be a complete asshole and accuse people of wanting someone to be abused and go bananas. You gotta kind of okay, I'm gonna take 5 minutes. You can go, because it's Walla now. So if you want to start with Walla, I will be listening, but I'm going to go. I am my stomach is eating itself at this point. I
need take that. Yeah. Go.
A little cracker and
eat a cracker, use the bathroom.
I'll be back.
All right. And I'll go ahead and I'll talk about Dr. Monica Walla.
4 hours. That was 4 hours of testimony. She was on stand.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Dr. Monica Walla. So she's a prison psychologist who met regularly with Richard Allen, and she testified that she also heard him confess to the murders. But Dr. Walla said Richard's mental health was extremely poor, critical, and deteriorating, and that he suffered from stress-induced psychosis at the time he made his confessions. She also testified there was no doubt he had serious mental illness around that time, evidenced by Allen's attempts to beat his head into the wall, according to notes that Walla recorded in Allen's medical chart. And some key points here. March 23rd, 2023, Allen was depressed and withdrawn and said that he was not straight in the head. April 4th, 2023, Allen suffered from insomnia, hopelessness, and was suicidal, and stated death would bring relief to him. April 13th, 2023, Allen was exhibiting bizarre behavior, including consuming his own feces, and was suffering from a grave disability. The prison psychologist ordered Allen receive an involuntary injection of psychotropic medication. April 21st, 2023, Allen's thoughts were disjointed and he was saying strange things. Dr. Walla discussed that he might be considered incompetent to stand trial. May 3rd, 2023, Allen said he wanted to confess details of the crime. May 18th, 2023, Allen receives another dose of psychotropic medication. May 23rd, 2023, Allen diagnosed as suffering from stress-induced psychosis. June 8th, 2023, Allen's depression at its peak, noted trembling, knees buckling. June 16th, 2023, Allen receives another dose of psychotropic medication. And late June 2023, Allen's mental health starts to improve. And October 2023, Allen was proclaiming his innocence. So she was assigned to treat Allen while he served time at Westville Correctional Facility, and she testified that she has long been fascinated by the Delphi murders and that she and her boyfriend traveled together to Delphi so they could visit the crime scene and stand on the Monon High Bridge prior to learning of Allen's arrest. Dr. Walla said she frequently listened to true crime podcasts about the Delphi murders case during her commute to the Westville prison and has commented on social media about which of those podcasts she recommends. She also admitted she used her IDOC issued computer to research other people mentioned as having possible involvement in the murders. Walla testified that she also spoke with Allen about the positive comments that she read online from his supporters, and she advised him not to discuss his possible involvement in the murders with anyone other than his defense attorneys. And Rosie asked if she thought her actions presented a conflict of interest and ethical problems, and Dr. Walla responded, "I disagree." So here are my issues with Dr. Walla. There are red flags with this lady, and here's one. She admittedly claimed that she was fascinated with the Delphi murders long before she became Allen's mental health doctor and before he was arrested. Fascination is one word. But based on her testimony, I would say she was more obsessed with it. Also, another red flag is that she went into her case management system, which sounds like a violation of department policy to me, and looked into information on alternative suspects like Kagan Klein, who for a time was linked to the Delphi case. Another big red flag is her engagement with other YouTube channels who thought either Kagan was guilty or just simply promoted Richard Allen's innocence. And these are things that no clear thinking person should ignore about her. Her motivations, to me, appear grossly biased. She also went beyond her role as a mental health professional and gave Allen legal advice, which is not her job. In her professional setting, that should be left to to the attorneys. Like she said, if you're going to talk to someone, talk to your attorney. But she should not be giving out the legal advice. And let's see. You like Dr. Walla. I think she's biased. I think she's grossly biased. There's something about that I don't know. She's crossing ethical boundaries, in my opinion, or maybe she has crossed them. So as we await Mel to return, hopefully she said she was listening, so I'm sure she's going to have a lot more to add. When she does come back, we'll continue. So how about this? Is anyone excited for college or pro football this weekend? Anyone? If so, who are you excited to watch? Maybe none of you like football. That's always a possibility. Right, but she has to offer that objectively. Like she needs to be unbiased. She needs to stay the course. And the fact that she is obsessed with the case and she has really, even if she's allowed to have an opinion on it, that's true. But it just seems like there's too much external bias regarding that. It's not up to her to decide whether he's innocent or guilty. and it feels like she's made that determination. I mean, hey, look, there are people in that prison who thinks that he was faking and feigning his mental illness. Now, I don't know if I would go to the level of eating my own shit, but hey, when it comes to life, when it comes to life in prison, death penalty, whatever have you, versus being free, you just might be willing to eat shit and learn to like the taste. That is a possibility. Could I do it? Man, I don't know. I mean, but when people are hungry, man, they're willing to do things. Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys look pretty good. They look really good. I'm a Patriots fan. I did not expect them to beat Cincinnati last week, so I'm hoping that they're going to beat Seattle. That's my hope. College football wise, love two teams. One's on a bye week, though. That's James Madison. The other one, West Virginia Mountaineers. Q Country Roads. Let's go. Let's win that backyard brawl against Pittsburgh. Giants fan. I will never forget. I will never forgive Eli Manning. You got to give the defense, because the defense is what stifled Brady. But still, damn Eli Manning. Damn him. No, in fairness, now the pain has subsided with those horrible losses to the New York Giants in the Super Bowl. And it's I love Peyton Manning too. Eli, he's funny. I wonder what's going to become of Archie Manning Jr. He's the backup for Texas, I believe, Longhorns. So I'm curious to see if that will go somewhere, or if he'll just become another Chris Sims. For those who don't know Chris Sims, he is the son of Super Bowl champion and former New York Giant Phil Sims, for anyone who may care. What do you guys think of, speaking of legal things, what do you guys think of that whole Tyreek Hill situation? The Miami Dolphins wide receiver being pulled over in that traffic stop last Sunday. Man, bootleg. Don't compare me to Vince McMahon, brother. Also curious to see how the Deshaun Watson situation for the Cleveland Browns, how that's going to turn out. If there is some kind of ethics clause in his contract, I'm curious to see how that's going to go. Hey, Truth Sleuth, just so you know, in case you don't know, Mel, Cold Truth, she's just taking a break, eating some crackers, getting something to drink, using the bathroom. She will be back momentarily. Oh no, man. Ever since Cold Truth went to take a break, these numbers are dropping. You guys do not like the sound of my voice. Oh man. Don't worry, she's going to come back. She's going to come back. Don't leave. He will be back. So anyone else have any thoughts and opinions about Dr. Walla? Go ahead and leave them in the comments. She's back.
I'm back.
Are you all crackered up?
I ate my cheese and crackers.
Oh, yeah, cheese too. Okay.
Yeah, I did. I put cheese on them.
Good. So, were you able to hear what I said regarding Dr. Walla? Because I'm sure you got a lot more to add to it.
I did. I don't really have that much more to add to it. I think it was one where I think you would have had, I think the people that were there would have like an insight into her. Like I assumed I wouldn't like her because of like her recommendations of freaking Garino as like a go-to for this case. Like, oh, like what?
Did she?
But
Have I been out of the loop? What did Greeno interview her?
no, she
Oh,
one of her only comments, and trust me, like the admins of all the Facebook groups, like Doug, because she was in I don't know, I can't remember which one now because there's so many, but she was in one, and like then it was kind of confusing as to whether it was a YouTube comment or a Facebook comment, and I didn't ask my trusty Delphi dilemma group for clarification on that, so I don't know. But she had said like the question was posed of like, who do you recommend for coverage of this case? And I think she listed Gray Hughes Investigates, Sleuth Intuition, and Greeno, like True Crime Investigates. And I was like, she is not smart if she's recommending that guy. I'm sorry. But then like, I don't know. I feel like there's like a dichotomy with her of from her testimony and what the people have told us, because we don't have transcripts, and I guess we're not going to on that one. That's kind of up in the air right now. But from everyone, like on both sides, I heard people say it seems like she really does care about Alan and try to like help him keep his best interests. Oh my gosh, I just noticed that my when I was on Raging Tomato, I'm the geriatric spirit, and it's like been on this thing the whole time. I don't know how to change it.
do you believe like she's crossed some ethical boundaries?
I think it's kind of like, I think it would be a gray area, but I think with the using, if she was able to use the system and not just like something that we have public access to, like my case or something, to look up Kagan Klein and like look at like that kind of stuff, that would be a violation of the contract that she's under as a third party contractor for Indiana Department of Corrections, for sure. Some of the things of her, like I think one she had told, like telling him like, don't talk about this case. I think that was just like her looking out for him as her patient. The what was the other one? I just had it in my head, man, it's gone. About the phone, like her with the whole, like people have been made it into this like more so on the like a big deal out of it, more so from like the he's guilty group about, or I don't know which group actually, about her getting, and it's this, so it was explained that the phone that she got him, it wasn't like her personal phone that was like not going to be recorded. It was the phone that is available to everyone on that unit, so they can all use that. They, some of them have tablets like Richard Allen, some of them don't have tablets because there's not enough and they're on a waiting list for one. But they do have a phone that they can use on that block. And so he asked her, like, and I could see where if he's just been using his tablet to contact and talk for average of 160 hours to his family while in solitary, which, okay, it proves that he's got contact with people, like he's speaking to people. So during that time, but all she did was go and get that phone that they can all use, which is it's recorded still. It's just, it's not through GTL. It's through a different like server. So it wasn't like she gave him her private phone to call Kathy, you know, and like talk to her and help him. Kathy didn't answer. But again, I think there was 2 times that was mentioned, and it was both like that phone, not some private phone where it wasn't going to be recorded. And then people were making a big deal about her shredding or deleting her notes. And I would think that would be pretty standard, like just psychiatric. So you would take notes during the thing and then enter, like if she entered those into the system, which she's required to do, then getting rid of her personal notes, well, they're uploaded here. So why,
I agree with that. I have no issues with it.
Keep that. Like, I don't know, but I don't think that was I think that was a big nothing burger. Her visiting him at Wabash, I don't know if that breaks any ethical boundaries, but I was like, wow. And then just the way I guess she acted in court of like, you know, seeming very sympathetic to him. I think that as like he was her patient, and I don't know. He didn't, I guess from people that were there, he didn't seem to be have it, like it's not like she was mistreating him or anything. And I think that the medication's been blown way out of proportion. You know, it's like forced Halidol and how dangerous that is, and whether he's on SSRIs. Well, I mean, I know for myself, like I've been given that. And I've been giving Halidol for obviously the ones I talked about earlier, and I've also been given it at a very low dose. I have to have procedures done sometimes every 1 year, sometimes every 6, and sometimes I get 3 in between them. And sometimes when you wake up, like they give me like a low dose of Halidol because it's also used for nausea. So, but in a crisis situation like that, I think they absolutely did the right thing. Like I said before, imagine if they didn't, all of these people would still be upset about that, you know? So, as far as Walla, I think it's, I think there's some things, like 2 things can be true at one time with her. Like, I think there's some issues there as far as what you were talking about, but I also think that she seemed to be very a compassionate person. And again, she's a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. So a lot of this stuff is coming from the person above her as far as medication and all of that.
Right.
So, it's not like she's the be all end all of that particular department within Westville. And then there was mention of like this, like she had, let me grab it a little, like a quote. Nope. So this was an exhibit that Stacy Diener, am I saying that right? Diener.
Diener, I think.
She entered exhibits 15 and 16, and one was May 2nd at 3 p.m. Quote, the psychosis appears to have disappeared. So I'll be one I'd want to see that exhibit. And then May 3rd of 2023, Alan stated he wanted to call Kathy because his tablet was broken. There is a cordless phone. I already mentioned that with the cell bug, and she went and got it for him and helped him to dial out, like, which like you had to enter certain numbers and like that thing. So I could see where if you haven't used that before, you would need help trying to do that. I don't think that's a violation of anything. But she did state that he wanted to go to a mental hospital. And I guess he'd said that like a couple times. And she told him that he needed to talk to his attorneys. She opined that if this was his wondering, just opining, if this was his motive to act the way that he was. Rosie, I guess Rosie had brought up the movie Silence of the Lambs with the cage, the scene I'm talking about. And like, she was like, I'm not familiar with that film. And I'm just like, what? Like, who is not familiar with that film? What? But, so you already mentioned the no communication and no sleep. Like, he refused to talk to people, and he wasn't sleeping, and he beat his head against the wall. His entire face and head was bruised. He was eating feces. And this is why he was given Halidol. He wanted to go to a mental hospital to be closer to his family. And that's really about all I mean, there's a policy. You can look it up. It's the suicide policy for IDOC. The last updated in April of 2022. And then the whole killing, remember that? Did you talk about that?
Which thing?
Where he had said something about like people were saying he was killing his family, but
that was mentioned earlier.
About that. Okay, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
And then June 8th was the peak of his instability. He was hospitalized in 2019 for mental health. That's it. So we're on to Brian Harshman, and this is going to be the end of Harshman is the last one to testify on the 31st.
All right. And the Harshman one, testimony of Detective Brian Harshman given at hearing on motion to suppress held July 31st, 2024. That's the one we're doing?
Yep.
All right. You want me to take the lead on this and you follow up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So some things for me that he mentioned, the professionalism shown by the DOC is almost over the top, more so than what he's ever seen in a custodial facility. The staff knows they are being videotaped. Interesting notes as to why Richard Allen felt he was being mentally tortured. And we kind of touched on this earlier. He believed that the psychological mental torture was being done to him, and he equated that to functions like it was loud in the prison at night and it kept him awake. The lights were always on and it bothered him. And he correlated a lot of those activities with being a torture tactic that the DOC used to mentally and psychologically affect him. Harshman noted that other inmates felt Richard Allen was receiving better treatment than them. He also noted that he interviewed other officers who felt Allen was feigning or faking symptoms of psychosis to portray himself as crazy. Questions were raised by the defense about Richard Allen's privacy, cell video recordings, phone calls, and digital communications were recorded and subjected for review, with the exception of communications with his attorneys. And some other keynotes here. So let's talk number one, multiple confessions by Rick Allen. So Harshman testified about Rick Allen's numerous confessions while incarcerated. He highlighted that these confessions were given voluntarily, unsolicited, and were made to multiple individuals, including family members, prison staff, and fellow inmates. Allen confessed to the murders over 60 plus times during his incarceration, especially after Rick Allen reportedly found God in prison in early 2023. These confessions were considered specific and detailed by Harshman. And we have statements only the killer would know. And we mentioned this before. Harshman testified that during his confessions, Rick Allen provided information that had not been made public, suggesting that only the killer would know such details. He pointed out that these statements were corroborated with crime scene evidence, which had been withheld from the public, adding weight to the confessions. These included elements such as descriptions of the murder weapon and actions taken by the perpetrator. And things in Rick Allen's own words. Harshman detailed how Rick Allen's confessions were consistent in multiple instances, reinforcing his culpability. In one of the most notable confessions, Rick Allen mentioned using a box cutter to commit the murders and later discarding it behind the CVS where he worked. And we talked about this already. Although the murder weapon hasn't been conclusively identified, the statement about the box cutter raised significant suspicion as it aligned with some details from the investigation. And of course, the inconsistencies in some confessions. And we touched on that earlier. Harshman acknowledged that some of Allen's confessions included incorrect or misleading details, such as his mentions of gunshot wounds, which conflicted with the autopsy report. The defense used these inconsistencies to argue that Allen may have been mentally unstable or coerced. And I'm probably saying that word, I, for some reason, the way you have issue saying toilet, I have issue saying this word. But however, Harshman emphasized that despite some discrepancies, the core details related to the killings remained consistent, pointing to Allen's involvement. And then we have to consider the unsolicited nature of the confessions. A critical aspect of Harshman's testimony is that Rick Allen's confessions were unsolicited. He reportedly initiated conversations about the murders without provocation on multiple occasions, confessing to mental health professionals, fellow inmates, and his family members. Harshman emphasized that his unsolicited nature strengthens the argument that these confessions were not the result of coercion or duress, but voluntary admissions of guilt. And the specific confession regarding the box cutter. Now, Harshman mentioned Allen's specific confession regarding the use of a box cutter in the murders, which Rick Allen claimed he later discarded behind the CVS. Although the box cutter hasn't been definitively linked to the crime, Harshman's testimony underscored that Allen's description of discarding the weapon aligned with the investigative efforts to trace his story. So despite being unable to locate the weapon, the consistency of Allen's narrative raised red flags for investigators. And the Harshman testimony, it paints a strong case against Rick Allen. Now, while some of Rick Allen's confessions contain inconsistencies, as we know, the unsolicited nature of his statements, along with specific knowledge of the crime, bolsters the argument for his guilt. Now, Harshman's testimony illustrates that Rick Allen's repeated voluntary confessions, particularly the box cutter admission, demonstrate critical details that align with the facts of the case, pointing towards his culpability. And as we know, we might have a lot more to know about the specific of that of these confessions. And that's what I have for the summary of Harshman's testimony.
Great. If I repeat anything, just say, stop. You're repeating what I already said. It's hard when you're like,
no, go
off with, like your notes and stuff. But I did note that Allen had made 650 to 670 calls, for a total of 150 to 170 hours of calls. And that's not including video or anything else, because they do have video calls. That was the thing after COVID, that you can have video, like what we're doing right now with inmates on those tablets. I think it might be, I can't remember if it's GTL or if that's through Via Path or Via Path, something. But anyway, that he started reading his Bible he got a Bible in March. And then I had with the, he had said, like, with the amount of time that you've been spent listening to these conversations, and one of the things that I've noticed was early in March, Mr. Allen began to become involved in reading a Bible. He proclaimed numerous times on March 21st that he had found Jesus and found God. That Allen clearly believes that he made, he may very likely not be with his family again in this lifetime. He was concerned about that what he wanted to make sure is that when they were in heaven together, and that he went to heaven to be with them, and he could go to heaven too. And it was interesting because that change of his demeanor really began to coincide with the just several days later the confession started. That his family, his mother, they all seem to be very religious people. They had conversations, and this is Harshman that's listening to these things, and he had extensive conversations about, if things don't go his way, then he wants to try to make sure. And oftentimes he says that he's not even sure with what he's done. And the fact that he's found God is going to be enough to get him to heaven. The question is posed to him, or to Harshman, when you say he's not sure what he's done, what do you mean by that? And Harshman says, well, and that's sort of where he alludes to, he doesn't really go any further. That he mentions sins, and nothing specific, a particular sin when he was talking about, he doesn't say it's specific. He does talk about the crimes he's charged with in this case. That's a question asked to him, and he says yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, yes. I thought it was interesting that the reason that he wanted to find God and that he wanted to go to heaven was so that he could be with his family, and not for anything really deeper than that, which, I don't know, just as a Christian, that struck me as a little odd. Like self-serving, I guess. I don't know. Just
Right.
But obviously, like, if he thinks like, I'm not going to get out of here, I'm not going to get to be with my family in this world, so I want to be with him in the next. That's kind of telling about, like, my question was, well, does he really think that he's gonna be found guilty? And then it's asked, okay, does he talk about with them with specificity? And Harshman says yes, that he has confessed, and he has talked about these crimes very specifically. Question, are we talking about one time or multiple times? And Harshman had said, it's, how do I try to put it? I tried to find a way to put it in numerical sense, because there are varying degrees of, like, these confessions. Of what I believe is, there's some confessions where it's just, I did this, this, and this. And there are some where you sort of dance around the outside of it. But just direct confessions that he has been able to find, telephone calls, the videos, the door sheets, 60 plus confessions at this point. And that's a conservative number without a doubt. So he's asked, okay, and in the ones that are more specific, does Alan include details that only the person involved in the crime would potentially know? And Harshman says, I believe that's correct. Yes. So that's the part where it's like, only the killer would know. And the thing is, though, that, like, this is March of, when was this? March 21st of 2023-ish area after. So again, with the discovery, I believe that was in, no, that would have been in, when was the discovery given to even the defense? Not all of it, but it started coming in between March and June of 2023. So the dates of these would be important. The first confessions, obviously Mrs. Allen and the mom were extremely upset, rightfully so. Richard's mother would say, you know, they're messing with you. They're messing with your mind, which I don't think that would be uncommon for a mother to say at all. The next one was his first message to his mom. I already said that. The line 10 was about so some of the statements, actually, this is a question, include motivations for the crime, like the motivations for why he did these. And Harshman says yes. So that was something I took a note of, because even though motivation doesn't need to be proven in a court of law, like that's everybody wants to know, including a jury.
And I'd like to know when the motivation was mentioned. Was this mentioned when he was giving inconsistent statements of how Abby and Libby were killed, or was this earlier on? So I'm kind of curious about the context of the motivation.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about the first times he was talking to Kathy and
Okay,
her
so
mom.
yeah,
But
I don't know if I would buy whatever motivation he would give to them, just because you would think that he would
yeah,
want to minimize his reasonings.
yeah,
But we'll see. I don't know. I think whatever the real reasons are probably a little more dark than maybe what he would want to tell them. That wouldn't be too uncommon.
yeah. And then the question is asked, and do some of his statements relate to why he would delay in confessing? And Harshman says yes. And did some of those relate to how his family might react to the reality that he committed the crime? This is on direct exam, remember, as well.
Okay.
And Harshman says that's correct. And it's like, this was one I heard. So this is the question, is there a period of time where he does not communicate with his family either by choice or his own result, like as a result of him confessing? Harshman says yes. There's been some periods of time where, for various reasons, he's gone an extended period, at least to Richard Allen's standards, of not communicating, because I guess he's avidly communicating, or not communicating with the family. And I think at one point his tablet broke, and so he broke it, and he had to wait to get another one. And I think it was already testified to. It was like only a week. I think that he may have lost his communication privilege for a while for some incident that happened at the department. I don't know what that would have been. So that was like a question of like, what's that about? He was very concerned about his family loving him no matter what the outcome. Extremely concerned about what happens as a result, like what would happen at the trial, like once they hear the details of the trial. So it's like he was extremely concerned, and these are in the recordings, right? So this is Harshman's testimony. Extremely concerned about what happens as a result of this trial. Will you still be there for me? You know, love me no matter what. Is it Rosie giving this? Or RJ, Aju, Ajer.
I guess yeah, her name is weird.
So it's asked, you indicated recently that you received and found a statement that you thought related to him making having a conversation with Kathy about how this is impacting her, and that he would contact the police to make a statement. And he said, yes, that did happen. And he asked him to share that with the court. And he said in November, and this is in 2022, he told her, if this comes to be too much for you, just let me know, and I'll talk to the detectives and tell them everything they want to know. That was kind of one of those statements where it's like, are you going to tell them the truth or just what they want to hear? Like what they want to know? Like, I don't know, just a thing I noted. And the question is like, once he experiences family not wanting to talk to him, is it sometime after that, like, and or not wanting to talk to him after he's confessed to them? Does he then cease or reduce the amount of statements that he's making about confessing to the crime? And Harshman says yes. The bulk of his confessions start in early April and continue through June, maybe into July. And after that, they start to really slow down as far as what I would consider the direct. And that was my question, was like, is this because of them being disgusted, like a negative emotion towards him because of it, by what he did, or because his lawyers are like telling him like, stop, they're like, these recorded, dude.
Yeah, try to undo what you've done. Yeah. And going back real quick, I mentioned it earlier, but him saying like, if it becomes too much for you, I'll tell the police, whatever. I don't see how saying that you are a murderer falsely would help his wife.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see them. Like, so what are you helping her with by saying, oh, if it becomes too much, I'll confess to the crime so that everyone knows that you married a convicted, a charged murderer. Well, let me say that again. It's getting late, guys. Sorry. An accused murderer who might become a convicted murderer. And if you're confessing to that, that would probably be what would lead, and probably be no trial because he would admit to it, and that would be that. So he would be a convicted murderer. I don't see how that helps his wife, Kathy, at all. I don't, but I don't know.
Yeah. One thing I'd had was in a statement he'd made to his mother in January of this year in a recorded phone call, that he wanted to tell the truth and be honest and just didn't want to hurt his family. So that was kind of a interesting one. And that's January of this year. And then some of it is like, he's really just really, and like a lot of people think like, oh, what's murder? They've got to be like a psychopath and lack like empathy. And that's just simply not true. Like there are psychopaths out there that are killers, but most of them are not deemed to be actual true psychopaths.
Right.
Where they do have some feeling for like their family and like, just being really concerned about that and the things they will see at the trial. He's really concerned about the things they will see and hear about him and see the photos of the girls and what he was accused of. Obviously, they're shocking. It's interesting wording is what I put. It's not what he did actually do, but what he's accused of. But then again, why would his family not love him if he wasn't the one who did that to them? Like maybe he's afraid they will believe the case and not him. But then why confess? Like that was
that doesn't make any sense. And going back to like, just because someone murders and kills, that means they don't have any love for anyone else. These murderers can compartmentalize parts of their life. They're not like, if you watch Dexter, where it's like he's emotionless and he's mimicking human behavior, or it's American Psycho with Patrick Bateman. That's not necessarily the textbook. Yes, there are murderers like that, but they're not all cookie cutter. They come in many different shapes and sizes. So he could do something horrific and have no empathy and no care for what he did to Abby and Libby, but he still loves his family. And this is an issue of shame where he clearly didn't want them to know what he did. Now the light is shined on him, and now it's like, because of what he's going through, because he's caught, now he's thinking about his wife. Like, look, instead of dragging this out for years, until we eventually get to a trial, if it would be easier for me just to tell the cops everything and make it as, clear cut and dry. They don't have to see the pictures, the horrible pictures at trial of what he did. If he
Right.
can spare them, he might be willing to do that for them. So, that's my thought in regards to that.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but he most likely really loves his family. Clearly, it seems like he really does. And yes, you can clearly love someone and do something utterly just horrific and unforgivable somewhere else.
Yeah. And like my thing with did he get to the point where like I get, criticized for bringing this up. It's just true. It's part of like forensic, psychology, clinical psychology of like compartmentalization of like, yeah, he did that day. And then he just like put it in a box. Like Chaotic Beauty just had a post and it was like, I'm going to screw up the quote, but it was like, the fear of looking into your own soul can almost be it's like too overwhelming of like when you're looking at what you have done. Sometimes like that's the hardest thing that we can ever do in life is to like look at the like what we've done and like deal with that. And it can cause people to just put it in a little box and like lock it away. But then when he's arrested and he realizes like, yeah, this is like really happening and he's had to face what he's done and that little box that he's compartmentalized had to be opened up. That could definitely cause a lot of emotions.
I agree.
And then, to another point, like you're not like, find me a court because it's like well, for one, his attorneys haven't even asked for him to be declared, incompetent to stand trial or to assert for serious mental health evaluate. Like they've not really done that, which, like, again, like all these people that just think they're so Billy badasses. Like, I think they've done some things to hurt their own client. And I did note that at Wabash in 2024, Harshman heard him saying that he was sorry he killed Abby, which if like, but if you look at the crime scene, I don't know what the BAU is talking about with this whole undoing. I don't get that vibe at all. I don't get the vibe of the ritual murder, sacrifice to, the Norse gods or Odin or any of the above. I don't get any of that, but like there is definitely a dichotomy at that crime scene of one victim is but the undoing as far as feeling remorse, where is that present with how Libby was left? Sticks, regardless of the sticks, her body was left completely exposed. And those sticks were not, unlike Abby, who was left in a very closed up position, legs crossed, arms, crossed, eyes, like she looked like she was just asleep, dressed, shoes on, even like everything. And the sticks that were laid on her, like if you notice, like they go over her private area, to just leave it at that. But like with Libby, they literally highlight it. Like there's nothing about the way that Libby was left out there that could indicate to me or ever get me to get on board if I was a jury to hear that he felt remorse because he put some sticks on her, literally like highlighting her private areas and leaving her body completely open like that. That is not remorse. So I found that statement about like felt bad for killing Abby, like was one really the target and the other one was just like a happenstance kind of thing. Like I hate talking about this stuff, but
do you think maybe it's possible an undoing for one and not the other? Do you think that's possible?
that's a possibility. But you're never going to get me to believe that there is an undoing. And that's the reason why those sticks were on Libby. Like, no.
Yeah. And that's why And
I don't
that's
care if
why,
it's a BAU at the top level. Like, no, I'm
right.
not personally going to buy that. And I wouldn't buy that if I was on a jury when I am faced with looking at that.
Well, and that's why they always call it an expert opinion and not an expert or an expert fact, because they are giving their best assessment with that. And you could be right. It could not be an undoing at all. That,
Yeah.
could be the case. I've seen, um, you know, professional opinions on something where the crime still happened, the person's still guilty for it, but they still get the whatever motivated factor. For example, if it's an undoing or
Mm-hmm.
a cold sacrifice or what have you, they get that wrong. They'll get things wrong as far as when the actual death occurred. I've seen that based on evidence of the body. The person's still guilty. They just get certain facts wrong. It does happen.
Yeah.
That's why people need to understand these are medical professional opinions. Well, and I'm sorry, professional opinions based on their expertise through the years, and it's not necessarily a fact. And that goes for both sides.
Yeah. Yep. One of the other things was this is r- uh, uh, Rosie asked, there were some references to Mr. Allen feeling tortured with regard to the defense motion and memorandum. Has there been a reference to that in the materials that you reviewed? Harshman says, yes, Mr. Allen does state a lot that he feels like he's being mentally tortured and that he has been pressed by family. Are they hurting you? Like his family's asking him over and over, are they hurting you? Are they making you, and he says as far as physical torture, he also says no. He believes that the psychological mental torture is what they're doing, and he equates that to the functions that it's loud in the prison at night and keeps him awake. The lights are always on, and it bothers me. And he correlates a lot of these activities with being a torture tactic that the
Yeah,
DOC is using to mentally and psychologically affect him.
yeah, and that's
That to me
hogwash.
really kind of shows, though, some of that, a little bit of self-centeredness of like, do you not realize that there's all of these other people that are around you, and the people that are around him are not even experience the loudness level of general pop,
Yeah,
and he thinks that they're doing that to him, like personally, which to me is like that's a self-centered way of thinking about things. Like you're literally only thinking about like you're the victim in this noise and stuff, and like if this is the torture that's caused him to, and not the coercion that the defense is stating, like if this is the torture of just being in prison, jail would be even, but like if not the same or worse with the noise and the lights. Like this is just prison. Like again, go watch all those shows. You can watch Locked Up. It's not a great environment, but it's not breaking any humanity. Like it's just not.
it's
And
not. Yeah, it's not inhumane treatment, whether anyone likes to believe that or not. It's just the realities of being in a prison.
yeah, and he said it was pretty common knowledge that everybody on the range would know that Mr. Allen was being treated differently than the rest. And Rosie asked, different in a, no, this is, different in a better way? He said, yeah, different in a better way. Correct. And did any of the offers that you interviewed relay that their impressions that Mr. Allen was feigning or faking symptoms of psychosis to portray himself as crazy? Yeah, I would have asked each and every one what they thought of the antics that Mr. Allen would portray. And Rosie, rightfully so, objected, because this is just here, But then again, like, this is also like, this is their he's asking them questions about what they think. And Miss Diener says that she'd rephrase the question and ask if officers relayed to him that they felt, this is lawyering right here. That's why I want to point it out. I was like, if they felt they were faking when he was acting out during April and May. I think that is a position of a corrections officer at a DOC facility, that they would be in a position to give a layperson's opinion about what they were observing. And the court says, well, no, it's as it relates to psychiatric symptoms. And she sustained the objection. So, yeah, she voted in their favor. Oh, crazy. So against them. And then this is like, so yeah, like some of the officers kind of thought he was faking. There's been other people that have wondered that, with the timing of it all, and wonder how he's doing now. And Cass, do we know much about Wabash? If this was a true psychosis, and I'm sorry, but what they just ruled in another case, what this is, even chronic or severe, depression, certain disorders in the DSM, they're going to be schizophrenia would be a reason for even with some, it will be they can plead guilty, but with diminished capacity, meaning there's mental health issue that caused this, but they're still sentenced within the confines of the law for murder. But then there's some that they're going to be sent to for schizophrenia or something like that. But a major depressive disorder is not going to cause you to kill 2 girls, nor is it going to make you confess wrongfully in it of itself. Is all I'm saying.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but if I went out and murdered someone, I have depression, I have insomnia, I have ADHD, I have OCD, I would not expect to be not held accountable because of that. No, there are mental disorders. They're listed in the DSM as let's see, Richard Chase, for an example. He was brutally murdering. I bet Mutter would have said it was a ritualistic killing, but he was literally psychotic, and he was convinced that his pulmonary artery, he needed it to get it out of other people. So he's eating them and getting to get to their pulmonary artery. And he was just brutally mutilating and murdering people, Look him up. Yeah. Freaking pulmonary artery. He was in a state of psychosis, schizophrenia, where he thought that other people were trying to steal his pulmonary artery. I don't know why it was he got obsessed with his pulmonary artery, that being the one that's gone, but he was trying to get it out of other people, and he murdered them in order to get his pulmonary artery. And then he was convinced that if he drank their blood, that he would be able to live. This is the difference I'm talking about. But when we're talking about the court's review of mental psychotic break here.
Right.
Then we get into the cross. So Harshman did not once observe anyone interrogating Alan. I wonder if we'll ever see this ourselves. That was the note I wrote. I believe him because he is making direct claims that if founded to be untrue, he would lose everything and face criminal charges. It's their recordings. So I think I'm referring to the them, doing anything abusive towards him or coercive towards him. Like, they're literally know that they're being recorded at all times.
Right. And that's why that whole thing of, well, he had to confess to his family because of what Odinist guards were saying, because of the threats, like, between that and the psychosis, like, well, which is it,
Mhm. Yeah, and then like I think like we thought it was gonna really get him. It was like, did you plan to monitor Alan's communications from day one? He was like, yeah. Like, this is what they do. This is a murder trial of two
Right.
children. Like, I don't know why people think that is so odd. He didn't arrange them. He just monitored, like he just viewed all and stabilized all the communications. And yeah, it's just a lot of. He he was really trying to hit home about the no privacy, and it was just like, duh. Like, I don't like this point could not have been for the judge. When they're going at it like, oh, but he doesn't have any privacy. He can't even talk to his mom. He can't even talk to his wife. Like,
I don't understand that.
With his wife was monitored. Like, duh. Like, the judge knows this. Rosie knows this. Baldwin knows this. Ajer, whatever. She knows this. So does all of the defense lawyers, and the prosecution lawyers, the court reporter, like, everybody knows, except for the people that don't know the system that are sitting in the audience. Just saying. And I just said, this is dumb as hell. Rosie has dealt with many pretrial detainees. He knows the system. They use it at all facilities. This is dumb. This whole thing that he tried to do was dumb. And then he was like, first time trying to monitor like a pre-detainee at the OC. And he was like, that's not convicted. He was like, no. Like, no, it's not. It's like, he's not the first pretrial detainee that's being monitored while in jail. Or like, no, I don't know. It's just, he asked him about the ODA patches, and Harshman says he's not seen them. Officers have patches that say, I hate. He was like, no, don't recall that. That he, I guess in one of the videos, he rips it off of his, like, the guard, like, rips it off his chest, and he didn't recall it. And I wanted to know if, like, the I hate people was that the RJ guy or the other guy, the two ones wearing the Odin patches. And Harshman was like, I interviewed all of them. They denied wearing patches, but I don't know if I believe that or not. I guess I find that one part. Oh, is it odd for Rosie asked if it was odd for inmates to find God? And Harsh, like, again, these are just such weird questions. He was like, no, that's not odd at all. That he's got a few things in his cell, his Bible and some other things. Apparently he has like crayons and coloring books. He has more than most. He has to have more of his books or get anything. And he's like, he's under supervision. Rosie calls it no blanket suicide smock, which is all standard policy. It's not, does because the judge knows this, right? So do all they. Yeah, I think it's completely degrading and counter suicidal ideations to be this put in a, a rip off, like tear apart, like little vesty thing, and your blanket taken away during the day. But like, none of this is going to move a judge or the people that like this hearing is for, right?
Right.
So again, who is this for? Who is all of these things for? Because they're not for the judge. There's no judge in hell that's going to be like, oh my gosh, he's wearing. That's not it. That's not a thing. It's not going to happen.
Do you have a guess? Do you have a guess who it's
so
for?
frustrated reading some of this, of just like, this is what pisses. I just know that they know this, and they know that the judge knows this. So obviously, like, the ruling is not going to go in their favor.
So the question is,
who is this for?
Do you think, who do you think this is for then? Do you have a guess?
A lot of this stuff was literally for, and I think poll butter as well. Why do you think that they didn't? We'll get into that later. I'm getting ahead. But yeah, I think a lot of this stuff is common. This is common knowledge stuff that Rosie already knows the answer to. He knows the judge is going to know. And so therefore, the only people in that courtroom, or that would hear the notes of people in that courtroom, would be the public that is naive, ignorant to the way of the system, and that none of this stuff is, it is nothing. So yeah, I think as well as I do with some of their emotions, the Shakespeareanness of them, like they act like Shakespeare himself's going to come out and grade them, the filigree wording and the descriptives and the just all of the adjectives they use, and just from the first Franks to the fourth Franks to these hearings. But like, these are not going, I don't know, maybe they're practicing to see, like, get a feel, like maybe they had a scout that was like looking around to see how the audience like took what they were saying to these witnesses, to see if like they were emotionally moved, or like could see any disdain on their face to judge whether a juror, like, I don't know, like it's a nationwide practice for suicide watch, nationwide. Like, Alan is treated like everyone else. Clearly he was deserving of keeping alive. He's deserving of keeping alive. He was at risk for suicide, for Pete's sake, like, but now let's twist that around. But can you imagine if just for Alan, they didn't follow protocol, the suicide protocol?
And then they would say they killed him.
They killed him.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like they Epsteined him. That's what they would say. Yeah.
The inconstituencies. What in the world am I writing? I can't. I've been practicing because I'm dyslexic, so writing is hard.
And it's been a long day.
I can't. No, this is just all the time. Like, I can't write. But
I'm just saying today it's been a long day. And when you've been at this since what, 3:45?
Right. Yeah, I'm so done. And I only got a couple more pages, but so I purposely wanted to take notes on these because I'm like, this gives me, because I'm going to the hearings. Like, I've already planned to go. So I can't go every day. I'm gonna have to miss. I gotta work. Like, that's a month and some days long. Like, there's no way. And then obviously just getting there, like, you have to get there so early, and that courtroom is so small, right? So I don't know, but I'm gonna try to go to every day except for the 2 I gotta work. But sorry for that noise, people. What was I saying?
You have a few more pages. You said you are going to go to the hearings. You can't go to all of them. But you're going to try to go.
The writing. So I thought that this would give me good practice. That maybe because, like, with reading, I have to read constantly so that I know how to read. It's been a thing since I was very young. Like, I read all the time so that I can retain the ability to read. So then I was like, well, why haven't I ever tried that with writing? So that's why I took these notes on these little sticky notes. So half of it is like I'm looking at my notes, but then I'm like, I have to go over to the actual thing, which thank God I underline this stuff because I can't read my own freaking notes. But it is better than some before. I'm just saying. So maybe it's gonna help. Maybe if I practice writing, I'll be able to write. So early on, he said he was innocent, and which wouldn't be uncommon. A lot of them do. Harshman said they weren't direct confessions. I didn't know what he was referring to. That was confusing part. It was like, but he's referencing something that he's referencing these statements that occurred on April, May, and June. He said correct. I don't just forget I even said that. I don't know what that was even about.
It's all right.
Oh, there's like 2 words here that I can read. They're getting worse as these go on. Oh, I made a note of like Anthony Dabaya did this to me with the I get him to call me and I'm going to tell them everything that I know, and I'll tell them where Nakota's body is. And but Alan had said something of like that of like, if I confess, then well, they say I confess. If I confess, then convict me and send me to jail so we can get this over with. He'll attribute things like that. He'll say, if I confess, then whatever. They say I confessed. I guess this is in November of 2022. Okay, so really early. If they want me to just do an interview with the police, I'll do it. If then that's the get to be too much. And I think that's it.
All right. So we're going to end it here today.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Really do want us to do number 2 and get into, especially.
Yeah, that would be good.
Perlmutter for sure. So
Yeah,
I can do kind of what I did with like going through the ones that I know we don't have transcripts for. Since I've already put in the 570 hours doing that whole timeline of like 45 pages of it. So I have to I'm making myself do the live because I've put in all the work. But a lot of them are like, I could do what I did today with like doing the ones that we don't have the transcripts for. And then me and you can do the Perlmutter, and because the Perlmutter one is the one I really want to hear. And obviously Cicero.
Yeah, Cicero and Perlmutter, that one's important.
Yeah.
I haven't read, let's see here, for Cecil and Ronald Purdy on August 1st, Holman on the 1st. And so haven't gotten to that yet. Now I do have other irons in the fire. Like there's I'm still working on that Nightmare project. There's a little Greeno project I would like to kind of put out there because I think there's some things that need to be shown on hypocrisy. Not hypocrisy as much as he's made some contradictory statements.
Always
that you got to line it up because I can't believe he's making the statements that he's making.
They're just getting wilder and wilder, and that's why I'm just like,
right.
But this is the thing, though. Cult leaders do this too.
Yeah.
Because they get off on the fact that they can just get people to believe whatever they say. So they're just getting more and more wild just to test that boundary because they literally get off on it. And that's like Greeno.
and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he is taking credit for
solving this.
He's taking credit for assisting the police in solving the case.
He's a key witness or something in this case. I think I just heard him say that. Meanwhile, Casey assaulted his wife again, people. Shocker.
Yep. What a great pair. I mean, that pair, that's I mean, Greeno.
Like, what does that have to take? Is he going to have to kill her for them to? He bonded out like 2 days later. He has strangled her. Got out, dismissed. I gave me some hope earlier that someone was like, maybe it wasn't dismissed, that they filed it in the wrong court. So we're like trying to find if it was refiled in the right court. So fingers crossed that he's still charged with strangulation, because that's a felony. But now he's literally, and there's a witness to this one, bails out. And what does his lawyer do immediately? I think it should be considered intimidation of the witness. Subpoenas that they show up to the initial hearing, the victim. It's a tactic, and they use it. And this is such a common theme in domestic violence habitual offenders like Anthony Greeno and Casey Conwell. Like, it's just like, to me, it's just like, you can see what's coming. You can, like, this is not psychic. This is predictable, patterned behavior that is going to lead to murder. And our system is so forked that that's what it takes in order for someone to be locked up. And like, it just blows my mind that people are giving these fools money to make a movie, a docuseries that literally does not exist.
And he made the claim that network bought it. If a network bought it, then you don't need to raise money for it.
Why are you homeless?
Right. Well, he claimed, I have all the money now. I'm all set. I don't care about this stupid case. And then it goes to I have nothing. And then also, ladies and gentlemen, this is a guy who would claim he would post his own alleged address online, which when he would try to post it on mine, I wouldn't, because if that was his, I didn't want to be responsible for doxing, even though he's doxing himself. And now he's complaining that he was, what is that term? Boy, it's late. What is that called? Swatting. I was swatted, and so I have to leave, and I can't go to my girlfriend's. I can't go here. It's like, motherfucker, you're the one who always posted your address saying, I'm afraid of nothing. And now all of a sudden, you claim you've been swatted, and now you're afraid? Which is it? It cannot be both. Unless you were living with your girlfriend. Unless that was the case. And she told you to get the fuck out, and, which I don't think is the case. I don't know what's the truth, because, it's so on the down low, and you can never trust him. So, but yeah, it's like, there's always these inconsistent statements. And if this does go, like, I could see it maybe if it is real and if it does get made, hypothetically, maybe it goes on Prime, but not like one of those.
Absolutely not.
No, listen to me. It's not like going on, like, being part of like The Boys or the case with Beverly Lynn Smith. There are people that can just have something put on Prime, but it's not promoted. You have to find it and you have to pay for it. It's happened. I've seen other podcasters do it. It's just a cheap way to do it, but they gotta do that. I know of people who created documentaries, not very well known documentaries, and it goes to low budget productions and streaming services that aren't really watched by anyone. So those type of things are possible. But it's not because people are dying. It's not like this big network. Like, for example, Prime's not the saying, we want your docuseries. We're going to promote it on Prime and it's going to be huge. No, it would just simply be on Prime and it would be for purchase. But it's kind of like one of those well, listen, it's like Amazon. Amazon has a self-publishing company, but it's on Amazon. So that would be like me saying, ladies and gentlemen, I am an author. I've been published by Amazon. They're going to publish my book, but people don't realize, like, well, yeah, they have a service, and that's what you're doing. So, right. So they could do the same thing with Prime, the same way that Amazon. And if you don't believe me, check it out. Like on Amazon, if you want to have a published book, and you can have copies, whether it be digital or hard copies, you can do that. And basically, you could do that. You're not going to get much profit, though. You can kind of set it, keep in mind, there's no promotional machine behind it, mind you, unless it's going to be yourself.
Right.
And you can do that. You should
I
see.
knew that. I have an uncle that did that.
Right.
He's so lame. I can't stand him, by the way. He's sick.
There's some bad self-published books out there, but especially in erotica. And so, people that feed into that fan fiction stuff. So that's what I was saying with Greeno, that if it goes on Prime and it's for purchase, it's going to go in the way that they're self-publishing, videos that you can put in there that people can buy, just so it's
sold
available.
This to the network.
No, he did not sell this to Prime. I'm just saying this is a possibility.
They're not gonna buy this because this is all
bullshit.
He's taken this. He didn't do any of those interviews. He didn't he splices things together, but it's not actually his body of work, and it's not even at the bridge.
And he did not interview Rick Allen or talk to him on the phone or give him the shack.
So ridiculous. Crying over Rick Allen after he's been saying he's going to murder him. He said it earlier in the thing, and then all of a sudden he starts crying over him.
Yeah, first it's, if justice isn't served,
he can be forgiven, and I can be too. What in the fork is happening now?
But that was right before. Wild. But that was right before he said that if he is found innocent, then there's vigilante justice. He's going to get him. But then Richard Allen has a heart all of a sudden. So it's very contradictory.
Totally, not true. No. Just if he says it, it's an automatically, it's just not true.
Yeah.
Because when someone habitually lies, then you cannot believe anything you say. Just like we were talking about earlier with Kegan Kline and Garrett Kurtz, other killers. When people lie to you or you catch them in a pattern of lying, then everything that they say has to be questioned. And he thinks people should just take him at his word that he's the only one putting out facts out there. And then the stuff that he says about Snay is literally applies directly to him on every single point that he says about Snay.
I consider the Rick Snay and Anthony Greeno thing to be. I consider it to be if you remember. If you remember,
he's a better person. He's not quite the criminal.
And I'm not. It's not even about who's worse. They're both pretty bad. We can agree on that. Whoever's worse is not the argument. It just reminds me of Spy versus Spy in Mad Magazine, or if anyone remembers the old the comedy show on Fox, and they would have those Spy versus Spy cartoons. That's basically what they are. They are Spy versus Spy.
Right. It's nuts. And then I don't know what to think about all these people claiming to talk to Kathy Allen. I don't know. There's so much, but I'm getting real fed up with fucking Alex Voorhees. I've had it.
I know the name Alex Voorhees. I've seen him comment. I don't look at his content, so I don't know anything about him.
He's just a complete narcissist and probably more. He's thinks, I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing it to a friend of mine, and she's done nothing, literally nothing. And I don't know who I can assume I know who he's talking to because a lot of his information sounds familiar. But it's this most insane stuff that is being said. I can't. I can't even the things that she's been accused of, I've been accused of, others have been accused of is just ridiculous. No.
A lot of bad actors.
I'm really over him, and I'm about to go to the top, with that guy, because there's some things that if certain people keep on just keeping on with that dude, and you are using him for your organization, you're asking for trouble.
Well, it is Friday the 13th. He might be related to Jason. I don't know if you understand that reference, but I know someone in that chat's going to know.
I don't, but I'm sure chaotic. Well, I don't know.
Jason Voorhees is a horror character in Friday the 13th. That's the name.
Yeah.
So
There's
I
a
figured,
Jason Voorhees, I think, that's in the chat. But
and it's
yeah, this is Alex, Weird Alex. He is thinks he's a hacker, and he thinks he solved the case. And I really think he's just like wants the money. Like, he's a rewardist. He wants the money, and he thinks that my friend is like getting in his way of getting that because she's mentioned the initials RA one time, and he thinks that she was trying to plant evidence against, I don't even know. It's so wild. It's like schizophrenia or addiction unleashed. And it's just like the most wild thing that like rational people can't really even, I don't even know how to say it. Like, because it's so, it's been wild though. And I'm getting fed up with it, trying to formulate a plan. So we'll see.
I hear you.
So I've had it. I don't like, I mean, people can say and do and whatever to me. I don't, I mean, I'd rather that. I literally would rather that. But when I see my like people getting hurt,
right,
that's when I lose my shit. Like,
well, you're a caring person, and
I don't like that, especially
others.
if I care about people. And it takes a lot for me to get to that point where I do care about people. But I also have a very strict boundary of when I will learn to stop caring about you if you do A, B, C, and D.
Well, and that makes sense.
It takes a lot.
Cause and reaction. No, I get it. So, Cold, stick around for a second as I end the stream, just so I can give you, a private goodbye. But everyone who stuck around, I appreciate it. I know Cultures appreciates it. Check out her channel. She started covering what we're covering, and then there were some issues with the simulcasting, so she came over here. So check mine out, check her stuff out, and just kind of keep an eye out. And until then, we'll catch your ass down the road, and have a good one. Goodbye.